It all began when this girl got sucked into the novel by some god's mistake. As an apology, the god promised to grant her any wish she wanted. But she took forever to come up with a good wish and eventually forgot about it. But she didn't really care because she used her knowledge of the world and the original plot of the book to climb to the very top with the super attractive male protagonist by her side. They lived happily ever after. But life doesn't end there. There's still work to do, tricky nobles to handle, and a husband who's way too possessive. Fed up with that kind of husband, Littera decided to divorce him, which led to more misfortunes later on. But there were also good times, like when she got a letter from Duke Termin. Every time she read his letter, her heart felt all warm and fuzzy because the Duke had poured his heart into it. Ferus Termin, the Duke of the Northern Territory of Termin, is totally hated by his fellow nobles. They mockingly call him the Northern Beast. He's Littera's closest buddy, even though they've never actually met face to face. But Littera feels like he's the only one who truly gets her. Their friendship started when she sent him a letter after she became the Empress. It was just a polite gesture, thanking him for not competing for the throne and making way for her to take it instead. But the response she got from him was so heartfelt and encouraging that they started getting closer with each letter they exchanged. They'd share personal updates, give each other advice on ruling, or simply shoot the breeze. Littera wasn't as brave as she pretended to be, and she was terrified of messing up as Empress. But with Duke Termin backing her up, she could handle the weight of her crown. They kept writing to each other, and before she knew it, 5 years had flown by. Littera figured it was high time they met up, but Duke Termin stubbornly turned down the invitation. He was distantly related to the previous emperor Littera had dethroned, and even though they didn't get along, people would definitely start gossiping if they were seen together, assuming there was something more than friendship going on. Littera didn't give a darn about what others said, but Duke Termin was just so darn stubborn. It got Littera curious about what he actually looked like. This being a fantasy romance novel and judging by his fancy handwriting, Littera was convinced he must be a total heartthrob. And his letters revealed he had a great personality too. Littera couldn't help but wonder if she could meet him just once. She even toyed with the idea of using her Empress authority to order him to meet her. But as she started writing that fantasy-turned real letter, she hesitated, crumpled it up, and started over in a more proper way. She expressed that if there ever came a day when political nonsense didn't matter, she'd be thrilled to meet him as good pals. She sealed the letter and handed it to her assistant for delivery to Duke Termin. She realized that if she forced the Duke to meet her, it would mark the end of their friendship. As Littera peered out the window, a heavy sadness engulfed her. She felt like a freaking empress who couldn't even hang with her bestie, and she actually considered chucking the throne. But then she realized that if she bailed, the whole empire would go bonkers, and guess what? Chaos was already running wild. Out of nowhere, this dude in a hoodie snuck up on Littera, and man, did that catch her off guard? It was her ex-hubby. He whipped out his sword and was all like, "If I can't have you, nobody can." He swung that thing, and that was the end of Littera's life. She thought, damn, if I knew it'd go down like this, I would have moved mountains to meet Duke Termin. So, she pleaded with the big man upstairs for another shot at a happy life. And there she stands, Littera, transported back to square one, wasting no time in offering Duke Termin a marriage proposal, hoping it would bring her the happiness she craves. But of course, nothing in life can be that simple. Up in this frozen northern region, Littera Myrto trudges through the snowy landscape, on her way to a certain place. As she reaches her destination, the door creaks open, and someone steps forward asking if she's the one who popped the marriage question. Littera is taken aback when she sees the man face to face. It's none other than Duke Ferus Termin himself, standing right in front of her, and boy, does he catch her off guard? He explains that he wanted to have a personal chat before making a decision, so he invited her here. It turns out that Littera's romanticized image of Duke Termin quickly crumbles upon meeting him in real life. With his piercing gaze, Duke Termin stares her down, suggesting she'd better leave now if she doesn't want to regret it. It seems like their contract marriage is off to a rocky start, to say the least. Littera gazes at the man before her, his intense eyes, wild beard, and a face marked with scars. For a moment, she wonders if she accidentally stumbled into a horror novel. She stands there, speechless, her mind reeling from these thoughts. But then she catches herself, realizing she's judging him solely based on his appearance. She gathers her courage, mustering up her strength, and tells the Duke to lead her inside because they have important matters to discuss. Duke Turman maintains his penetrating stare, cautioning Littera not to claim he didn't warn her. As he guides her along, he keeps hinting that she can still turn back, assuring her that nobody would hold it against her and she can change her mind at any time. Those words naturally send shivers down Littera's spine, but she knows she must face this situation head-on regardless. Inside the castle, Littera nervously scans her surroundings, her eyes darting around. Suddenly, Duke Turman interrupts her thoughts, apologizing for the absence of a welcome party, explaining that it's been ages since anyone has visited. Her anxiety still present, Littera questions whether her trembling is due to fear or the chilly air. The palace gives off an eerie vibe, with the servants sending shivers down her spine, and even the knights appear suspicious. Littera starts to wonder if she made a huge mistake by putting her trust in those letters, as if she stumbled into an entirely different genre altogether. She wrestles with her decision, unsure of what to do next. But as they approach the room, Littera realizes it's far too late to make an escape. Without wasting any more time, Duke Turman gets straight to the point, bluntly asking Littera why she proposed to him. In reality, she hasn't achieved the real purpose of her visit, but she can't just come clean about it. So she comes up with a made-up reason, saying she wants to embrace the lifestyle of a woman from the north. While her main motive for proposing was to meet Duke Turman, she also had another motivation. She wanted to be as far away from the imperial palace as possible. In the original story, the palace affairs were the driving force behind character development. Corruption, internal conflicts, and all the struggles every noble had to endure. Sipping her tea, Littera concludes that she's not going back to live that life again. Especially with that crazy jerk as the current crown prince. Just the thought of him makes her feel sick. In her previous life, Littera, a humble baron's daughter like herself, became empress because the original male protagonist, the crown prince, relinquished the throne for her. She was grateful back then, but now she doesn't even want to catch a glimpse of him from afar. And what better place to avoid him than up here in the north? The imperial palace couldn't care less about this region. It might as well be a whole different country. Nowhere else is as far removed from their influence. But of course, Littera can't exactly spill all that to Duke Turman. She figures she'd probably be burned at the stake for witchcraft if she did. So instead, she explains her intentions further, expressing her desire to distance herself as much as possible from the imperial palace. The less they know about her existence, the better. She insists that marriage is the best guarantee of protection. Upon hearing her explanations, Duke Turman responds by warning her that this marriage will bring her more harm than good. He explains that the north is a cold and unforgiving place, overrun with monsters. Hesitatingly, he mentions that Littera has likely heard the rumors about him. The northern beast, the savage man with imperial blood, but no dignity or class. A madman solely skilled in monster slaughter. He also predicts that it won't be long before people start spreading rumors about Littera as well. Despite the marriage being merely on paper, she won't emerge unscathed. Despite the unsettling words, Littera stays composed, realizing that the Duke has always been like this. In his letters, he was warm and kind, but never hesitated to put himself down. In her previous life, she even offered to find him a wife due to his lack of an heir. And he responded the same way. Now she understands why the Duke warned her to leave before she regretted it. He's scared of tarnishing her reputation. Littera is convinced that he's still the same person deep down, even if he doesn't match her imagined appearance. It's clear that he's the fairest Turman she knows. When Littera found herself struggling in the ruthless world of politics and navigating through treacherous noble circles, Duke Turman became her one precious friend who always provided solace and support. She firmly decides that there's no turning back. Littera makes it clear that none of the concerns the Duke mentioned are an issue for her, and Duke Turman looks genuinely surprised by her response. Littera then adds that, in fact, those are additional advantages for her. She explains that due to the monster threat in this region, the imperial palace needs Duke Turman more than he needs them, and the absurd rumors discourage any cowardly troublemakers from venturing here, and causing havoc. Littera confidently asserts that she thoroughly thought it through before making the proposal. She also encourages Duke Termin not to belittle himself so much, telling him that she values him greatly regardless of his lack of power or reputation. She embarked on the challenging journey north, specifically to meet him. She declares that she wouldn't have gone through with it if she didn't consider it worthwhile. Littera then suggests a compromise, telling Duke Termin that if he truly believes being her husband will harm her, they can simply be friends instead. She doesn't want to live a life filled with regrets. With a warm smile, she reassures him that it's okay for friends to unintentionally hurt each other sometimes. Hearing these unexpected words from Littera, Duke Termin is taken aback. Still in disbelief, he seeks confirmation, wanting to make sure Littera truly means what she's saying, even after meeting him in person. Littera hesitantly admits that she was a bit scared at first, but it's evident to her now that Duke Termin poses no threat to her and has no ill intentions. She emphasizes that appearances hold no importance in a contractual marriage. Then she anxiously awaits Duke Termin's answer, worrying that she may have been too forward, and asks if he would prefer her to leave. Duke Termin appears hesitant, abruptly standing up and expressing that he doesn't want her to leave, at least not until she explains something to him. As he reveals a bunch of letters to her, Littera is taken aback. Duke Termin explains that he didn't want to confront her with those letters as soon as she arrived, but that's the true reason he invited her there. He asks Littera if she knows what those letters are, causing her to stand up in shock as she realizes they are all the letters she had sent him. She is completely shaken to the core, wondering why her letters are present in that place. Now let's take a look at things from Ferris' perspective. From now on, I'll refer to Duke Termin as Ferris, alright? It was the day before Littera's proposal letter arrived when Ferris received an invitation from the Imperial Palace. He instructed his servant to get rid of it, but the servant explained that it was insisting on Ferris's attendance since it was an imperial order. However, being as strict as always, Ferris made it clear that he didn't care and wouldn't go, whether it was an order or not. He firmly believed it was nothing more than a mockery. He signaled his servant to handle it. Alone in his room, Ferris felt frustrated, wondering why they couldn't just leave him alone. He had no interest in the power struggles of the Imperial Palace, and he couldn't understand why they kept bothering him so frequently. In his mind, Ferris couldn't think of anything he wanted less than stepping into that inhuman golden jungle of theirs. He was certain that there might be one person he could have a genuine conversation with, but he knew better than to expect it. He wondered who would ever want to talk to the Northern Beast. Rejected by every noble in the Empire? As his thoughts wandered, he noticed something shiny coming from inside a drawer nearby. Surprised, he checked it and discovered numerous letters shining like a bright sun. He couldn't help but wonder what could those letters be all about. Let's go back to the present. Upon hearing the explanation about the mysterious appearance of the letters, Littera wears a confused expression and seeks confirmation, making sure she understood correctly that the letters just showed up out of nowhere. Ferris acknowledges that it must be difficult to believe. Littera, feeling frustrated with the works of the gods, blames them for not bringing Ferris back to the past as well. She worries that Ferris might think she's some kind of witch. Suddenly, Ferris gently touches Littera's shoulder, asking if she's okay. He quickly retracts his hand, apologizing for the touch, explaining that she seemed quite shocked. Littera is taken aback by his gentle gesture, but she quickly regains her composure, assuring him that she's fine and that she was just caught off guard. Ferus assures her that he's not accusing her of anything, and that he only wanted to confirm whether or not she is the person mentioned in those letters from the future. Hesitant, Littera then suggests that Ferris take a seat first, as she has a long story to tell. After spending some time explaining, Ferus finally grasps the concept of Littera's reincarnation, though Littera still hesitates, thinking it sounds crazy and unsure if Ferris will truly understand. However, with excitement, she suggests giving Ferris a hint about upcoming events. If those events come true, it would serve as proof of her claims. Before she can elaborate further, Ferris interrupts and assures her that there's no need for such demonstrations. He reveals that he had already consulted a priest who examined the letters. The priest was astounded by their aura, stating that he had never encountered such potent holy power before. Even without delving into their contents, the priest recognized their significance and advised Ferris to cherish them as precious holy relics. Ferris stumbled upon letters from the future written by Littera, who considered him a close buddy. They would exchange casual chit-chat, offer heartfelt advice, and sometimes even dish out harsh truths. Most of the time, they simply shared their current emotions without worrying about political games. It was pure and simple friendship. Back then, Ferris couldn't help but question why fate allowed him to receive these letters, revealing a future friend. He pondered whether it was a sign from a higher power, urging him to find her. His mind became muddled, unsure of what to do after their meeting. This thought left him frustrated, so he decided to dwell on it later. However, his servant interrupted with news of a letter from the Merto household. Ferris eagerly asked if it was from Littera Merto, and the servant confirmed it was. Without hesitation, Ferris snatched the letter from the servant's hand. Unfolding it, he couldn't comprehend why he had received the letter ahead of schedule, meant to arrive a year later. His eyes widened as he read the contents. A marriage proposal. Ferris kinda nervously tells Littera that when he got the marriage proposal from her, he was totally blown away, even more shocked than when he discovered those surprise future letters. He spills the beans that no one had ever offered him a political marriage before. While saying sorry, Littera thinks Ferris is way more innocent than he appears. Ferris gets it and figures that since Littera has already seen the future, she can make a rational judgment on what's best. At first, Ferris planned to give back the letters, face any judgmental looks she might throw his way, and then just forget about the whole thing. But now, he seems to have changed his mind. Stepping closer to Littera, he tells her that if she really believes she won't regret it, he'd be thrilled to accept. In Littera's last letter to Ferris, she wished for them to meet as friends. Considering that Littera immediately went back to the past after that, it means the other Ferris received the final letter along with news of her death. That's when Ferris realizes he won't turn Littera away, so that neither of them will have any regrets. Littera, with a big smile on her face, tells Ferris to look forward to becoming his wife. As she takes Ferris's hand, she asks if she can call him Fer instead, since it feels weird to be so formal with friends. Ferris, feeling a bit shy and avoiding eye contact, agrees to her request. He then mentions that he should show a bit more respect towards her, considering she has lived 3 lives and is considerably older than him, so he starts calling her Mom. Littera is shocked to hear that, thinking it's like he's referring to his schoolteacher. She insists that Ferris can call her Littera. Although Ferris feels it's a bit impolite, he awkwardly agrees and says yes to calling her by her name. So they go ahead and sign their marriage document. Ferris wonders if it's okay to skip the whole wedding ceremony thing, but Littera reassures him that it's fine. After all, their marriage is only on paper, and it would be more awkward later on if he were to find a real wife and they needed to get a divorce. Ferris is stunned by her statement. He firmly believes that won't happen and asks Littera if he had a wife in her past life. Littera responds, saying that not until after she had died at least. But hey, nobody knows what the future holds. With a confident smile, she tells Ferris to be sure to let her know first if he ever finds someone, and she'll have the divorce papers ready within an hour. Ferris maintains his indifferent expression and states that it won't happen. While casually strolling around the castle, Ferris tells Littera that he's gonna start by introducing her to the main servants she'll be dealing with. He makes it clear that if she needs anything, she should just ask them without any hesitation. As they come across the servants, Ferris introduces Jurgen, the butler, and Nikki, the maid. But it's pretty clear from their expressions that the servants aren't exactly radiating warmth. Ferris proudly presents Littera as the new Duchess and puts his full trust in the servants to take care of her every need. Littera remembers the servants' creepy stares when she first stepped foot in the castle, and now they start whispering among themselves, getting all bold and vocal about their opposition to Ferris and Littera's marriage. Both Ferris and Littera are caught off guard and completely shocked to hear this. Jurgen takes it up a notch, straight up saying they can't allow the marriage to happen and suggests Ferris send Littera packing back south as soon as possible. Littera's jaw practically hits the floor, thinking these servants are already plotting to get rid of her right from the get-go. Ferris, barely keeping his cool, firmly states that he won't tolerate such blatant disrespect. But Jurgen, fearless as ever, stands his ground, insisting that their minds are made up and that Littera deserves way better. Littera and Ferris are left absolutely dumbfounded, unable to find words to respond to these mind-blowing revelations. Jurgen then tells Ferris how disappointed he is in him. He admits that he encouraged Ferris to find a wife, but never expected him to take advantage of a vulnerable woman like that. Meanwhile, Nikki sidles up to Littera, grabs her hands, and tells her that if she wants to make a run for it, all she's gotta do is ask. They're willing to put their lives on the line to help her escape this mess. Now that Littera gets the situation, she asks if it means they were staring earlier because they were concerned about her well-being, noticing how terrified she looked. Ferris jumps in, claiming that the servants are worrying over nothing. Feeling frustrated, Ferris covers his face with his hand while apologizing to Littera. But Littera feels like she should be the one saying sorry for causing this weird misunderstanding and drops Ferris's nickname. Both Jurgen and Nikki are taken aback when they hear Littera using that nickname. Littera expresses her gratitude for their concern and announces that she ain't going back down south. With a beaming smile, she spills the beans that it was her idea to get hitched. This revelation makes Ferris suddenly turn beet red. Littera is totally confused by his reaction, and he stammers that saying it like that will only fuel the servants' misconceptions. But Littera stays cool and confirms that it's true. She's the one who proposed to him. Apparently, the whole scene they witnessed convinced them that Littera's head over heels for Ferris, especially since she popped the question despite him never getting any proposals before. They apologize for their initial disapproval, and even Ferris tries to straighten things out. But Jurgen and Nikki find comfort in what they see as the real deal, and they sincerely wish the couple a lifetime of happiness together. As night creeps in and they find themselves in their cozy hideout, Ferris spills his worries to Littera about the servants getting even weirder ideas about them. But Littera, cool as a cucumber, tells him she's totally cool with it and thinks it's kinda sweet that they see him as someone worth loving. Ferris is blown away by Littera's words, bringing back her original intention of simply wanting to be pals, without getting all tangled up in romance. Feeling bummed out, Littera agrees but adds that people's hearts can change, and who knows, maybe their bond could go beyond friendship in due time. In a soft tone, Ferris gently calls her name, reminding her of her troubled past. Littera's face fills with sadness. Ferris frets that if the mistaken love story continues, it might come back to bite her in the butt. Littera admits Ferris is right, cause the thought of loving someone again scares the crap out of her. Even thinking about it makes her heart twist, knowing how quickly warm feelings can morph into something dark and twisted. Out of the blue, Littera steps closer to Ferris and blurts out that she doesn't want her fear to make people treat him like he's unlovable or misunderstand their marriage. She wants to smash those dumb stereotypes people have about him cause he's her precious buddy. Touched by her words, Ferris drops down on one knee, grabs her hands and locks eyes with her, declaring that even if their marriage is just a contract and they're more like pals than lovers, as long as they're stuck with that husband and wife label, he'll stick by her side and won't toss her away. After Littera kicked out the old emperor, those still on his side went up to Ferris and told him to rebel against Littera because she wasn't the rightful ruler. Ferris could have easily taken Littera's throne if he wanted to, but instead of accepting their offer, he not only declined but also attacked every single one of them. Littera tried to repay him for that, and he replied with a letter saying that he was just doing his duty and didn't want or need any reward. If he had one wish, it would be to be loyal to Littera forever. Now, in a different life, Ferris is once again pledging his loyalty to Littera. He's truly loyal without expecting anything in return. Ferris then explains that he's only holding himself to that promise and he has no intention of forcing Littera to do the same. He adds that if Littera wants to leave him for someone else, he would be okay with it. But before he can finish his words, Littera suddenly jumps into his arms and hugs him. Littera realizes that the reason she was so desperate to see him is because she knew he was this kind of person. Littera tells him that even though all she can offer right now is friendship, she will do whatever she can to repay his loyalty. She believes that as long as she's by his side, she'll find her happiness. She expresses that she wants Ferris to find happiness too. After some hesitation, Ferris hugs Littera tightly and promises to do his best to be deserving of her loyalty. But Littera forgot one crucial thing. The northern part of the empire is freaking freezing, especially at night. Littera is shivering and trembling, feeling like her bones have turned into icicles. She wonders how Ferris can survive without even a blanket. While trembling like crazy, Littera starts to think this might be how her third life comes to an end. Out of the blue, Ferris comes up to Littera and asks if she's freezing because he can hear her teeth chattering. He then wraps her up in a thick fur blanket. Littera, feeling a bit embarrassed, admits that she hasn't gotten used to the northern weather yet. Ferris promises to have the servants crank up the heat tomorrow, but for now, Littera is covered from head to toe in the fur blanket. Thanking Ferris for his thoughtfulness, Littera nervously mentions that she's still freezing even though she looks like a human burrito. Ferris apologizes and admits he's not sure what else to do since he's never met someone who's so terrible at dealing with the cold. Littera realizes she has no other choice, so she reluctantly lets go of the blanket and hesitantly asks Ferus if he can share his body heat. Feeling a bit awkward while hugging Littera, Ferris asks if this whole body heat sharing thing is really going to work. Littera assures him that she feels so much warmer now and compares it to cuddling a giant bear. Eventually, Littera drifts off to sleep. Ferris never even dared to dream of a moment like this in his entire life. He'd accepted that he would be alone forever, remembering the tragic moment when his parents passed away and his father's final words telling him never to trust anyone. But now he feels an overwhelming desire to trust Littera and repay her for the trust she has shown in him. Suddenly, Littera starts talking in her sleep, expressing her fear of dying and grinding her teeth hard. Ferris wonders if she's dreaming about her encounter with Everett, the Crown Prince, and a distant relative of Ferris, whom Littera refers to as the original male protagonist. Despite Littera changing the future by coming there, Ferris realizes they can't let their guard down. Littera continues grinding her teeth while asleep, and Ferris realizes he needs to do something to prevent her from damaging her teeth. Gently opening Littera's mouth, Ferris places his finger between her teeth, thinking that even if he has to do it every night, it's worth it to ensure she can sleep peacefully. Waking up with a guilty feeling, Littera apologizes to Ferris. She expresses her concern that he must not have been able to sleep at all throughout the night. But true to Ferris' nature, he brushes it off, saying she doesn't need to worry about him. He once spent an entire month sleeping amidst the growls and cries of monsters, so this was nothing. Seriously, what kind of dude did Littera marry? Littera then suggests that Ferris should use a hand towel or something next time, worrying that he might have gotten hurt. But Ferris compares it to a monster's bite, and even though Littera feels bad about hurting him, he turns her own words against her, saying that friends are allowed to hurt each other. Littera can't even come up with a response to that. However, she still tries to convince him that it doesn't mean she can take advantage of him whenever she wants, questioning what would happen if she asked him to give her all his money. Unexpectedly, Ferris says it might not be such a bad idea since she has more experience in handling finances than him. Littera is left speechless. She's definitely lost to Ferris in this argument. As Ferris draws his face closer, he even suggests that if she wants, he'd be happy to give her his title too, but Littera quickly declines. Gripping his clothes and shaking him, Littera tells Ferris to stop being such a pushover. But suddenly, there's a knock on the door, and Jurgen opens it, informing them that it's time for breakfast. Both Littera and Ferris are surprised by the interruption, with Ferris falling and Littera ending up on top of him. Jurgen, stunned by the sight, quickly backs off and closes the door, leaving Littera and Ferris unable to explain what just happened. Feeling embarrassed, they both think that Jurgen must have misunderstood the situation once again. Meanwhile, Nikki, who predicted the whole situation, sees Jurgen's nervous expression as he returns and suggests that they serve breakfast a little later today. Yep, they definitely misunderstood yet again. While chowing down on their breakfast, Littera asks Ferris if she can borrow his office because she's got some work to do. Ferris politely asks what kind of work she wants to do, and Littera casually replies that she's just trying to make some extra cash. With a bunch of papers piled up, Littera plans on using her future knowledge to make money. Working in Ferris's office feels kinda cozy to her, especially since she daydreams about the time Ferris wrote his letter to her there. After regaining her composure, she dives into her tasks, flipping through documents. Finally, she finds the one she's been looking for and asks Jurgen where Ferus is at the moment because she needs to give him something. Jurgen leads the way, mentioning that Ferris is usually doing equipment inspections in the armory around this time. As they arrive, Jurgen knocks on the door and asks for permission to enter. Littera is left speechless as she steps into the room, Ferris is there, shirtless, revealing his ripped muscles and some scars, and he asks if she needs something from him. Littera is still staring at his bod and she's all confused, making Ferris apologize for the unexpected view. Trying to clarify things, Littera explains that she wasn't expecting it at all and was just shocked to walk in on him without a shirt. She avoids eye contact but reveals her intention of seeing him and still being awestruck by his ridiculously ripped body. Averting Ferris's gaze, she hands him the paper. While Ferris checks the paper, Littera tells him that she should have given it to him earlier, but there was so much going on that she forgot. Noticing that Jurgen is still lingering nearby, Littera whispers to Ferris, informing him that the other him wanted that piece of land. He had mentioned it in the letter to Littera, expressing regret for not getting it at the time. Since he rarely talked about wanting anything, it stuck in Littera's memory. She explains that after being reincarnated, she made sure to grab that land while it was still available. Ferris asks if it's just some random mountain, wondering if there's something valuable hidden there. Littera casually drops the bombshell, saying it's not a big deal, just a bunch of diamonds. Ferris' eyes practically pop out of his head in shock, and he quickly hands the paper back to Littera, telling her to take it back. Littera insists that he accepts it as her dowry. Desperate to refuse, Ferus tries to argue that the other him wanted to give it to Littera. But with a firm look, Littera firmly asks if he's rejecting her gift after she went through all that trouble. Eventually, Ferris gives in, but his mind is racing, trying to figure out how he can repay her. Meanwhile, poor Jurgen seems to have been completely forgotten in the whole exchange. As Ferus slashes through the never-ending horde of monsters, he can't help but feel frustrated because he hasn't had a chance to pay Littera back for the land she gave him. He had tried to bring it up before, asking her what she wanted in return, but she always brushed him off. Every time he thought of giving her a little something, she'd spoil herself with treats, so the timing was never right. He just wanted to show his gratitude, but she insisted that he had already done enough for her in their past lives. It was a total defeat for Ferris. In her previous life, he showered her with gifts, each letter accompanied by a small token of his affection. He even went as far as clearing a piece of land and building a private holiday home for her. Yet she would never let him repay her kindness. And now the roles have reversed. Ferris wanted to say something to Littera, to express his feelings, but before he could get the words out, a knight bursts into the room, urgently informing him that there's a swarm of monsters. And there he is. Ferris racks his brain, trying to figure out what he can possibly give Littera. She keeps saying that being with him is enough, but he just can't accept that. It leaves him feeling desperate and downcast. He quickly pulls himself together, standing up and thinking that the faster they deal with this mess, the sooner he can go home. Out of nowhere, there's a loud roar behind him. The giant monster tries to swipe at Ferris, but he swiftly jumps out of the way, avoiding the attack. The other knights are puzzled by his unexpected dodge instead of his usual strategy of slashing right away. Then, in a burst of realization, Ferris asks his knights if the monster's fur would look good in pink. The knights finally catch on and enthusiastically exclaim that it would be perfect. With a super excited expression on his face, Ferus declares that they need to get it done quickly and flawlessly. Littera is absolutely amazed by the fur coat Ferus gives her. She exclaims that she's never seen fur in such a unique color before. Ferris, who has swiftly cleaned himself up, tells Littera to try it on. Feeling like she can't turn down his gift after all the effort he must have put into it, Littera wraps herself in the fur, asking Ferus if it suits her. As Littera shines brightly in the fur he gave her, Ferus is completely mesmerized by her beauty. Suddenly, he's filled with an intense urge to slay 100 monsters on the spot. But Littera quickly stops him, telling him that one is more than enough. And now, Littera starts to notice just how cute Ferris's face is. She gently pats his head, promising to cherish the gift, knowing that it must have been difficult for him to protect the fur while fighting off the monsters. Her touch on Ferris's face makes him blush, and he becomes even more determined to keep giving her even more. In Littera's room, while brushing her hair, Nikki reveals about Ferris being a changed man since Littera came into the picture. The rest of the staff wanted to give her a big shout out for that. Littera gets curious about how Ferris used to be before, and Nikki sets the record straight. It's not like they were treated badly or anything, but there were some incidents. You see, House Termin is part of the Imperial family, but to prevent them from causing trouble, they were shipped off to the far north to deal with monsters and stuff. Every little thing they did was watched closely. Eventually, they decided to wipe out everyone except the youngest son. Somehow, that kid managed to escape the clutches of the Imperial court and reclaim his position. But in the process, he became a loner and really short-tempered. That's why people started calling him the Northern Beast. Littera listens to the story and comments that Ferris doesn't seem all that ill-tempered to her. In fact, he's quite the gentleman. Nikki explains that Ferris only shows that side to Littera. Turns out he hates the other nobles so much that whenever they visit, they often end up fainting. Littera is shocked to hear this, realizing that the rumors were actually true. Nikki even confesses to having personally escorted 5 nobles out due to fainting spells. That's why everyone was expecting the same when Littera arrived, but luckily they were proven wrong. Getting real? Nikki asks Littera to treat Ferris well because they all want to see him, the beloved of the Northerners, live a happy life. Nikki emphasizes how much better it is to work under a boss who's happy rather than a grumpy one. While strolling down the hallway all by herself, Littera starts musing about how in both her past life and the current one, Ferris has always showered her with warmth. She always assumed that's just how he is. It dawns on her that she knows so little about him and she's curious to hear about him from others as well. Lost in her thoughts, a knight interrupts her with a greeting. He introduces himself as Kane, a knight from the top division. Kane expresses his desire to thank Littera for quite some time and feels honored to finally get the chance. Littera appears puzzled, but then Kane explains that Ferris has transformed so much since Littera entered the scene. He mentions how genuinely happy Ferris looks now and wants to express his heartfelt gratitude to Littera for that. Kane deeply respects Ferris, so seeing him so joyous is a real pleasure. Littera contemplates what Kane said, realizing it's just like what Nikki mentioned earlier. This revelation makes her wonder about the lonely life Ferris has led. Ferris never revealed his true feelings, but now Littera understands why he constantly tries to downplay himself. Feeling uplifted, Littera makes a promise to herself to put in even more effort to make Ferris even happier. While Littera and Kane engage in a lively conversation, Ferris catches sight of them. However, just as he's about to call out to Littera, he hesitates. Seeing Littera so happy and engaged with someone else, Ferris feels a wave of sadness wash over him. It's as if he's caught in a blizzard, reminded of how inadequate he feels. No matter how much he wishes to do for her, he believes he has very little to offer. Without saying a word, he turns around and starts walking away. But Littera notices Ferris retreating and quickly calls out his name, rushing toward him. She tells him she was hoping to speak with him. However, Ferus merely glances at Littera briefly before turning his head away and picking up his pace. In his mind, he believes that their marriage will only bring harm to Littera and that it's not too late for her to find someone more suitable. Littera is perplexed by Ferris's reaction, wondering why he seems so unhappy. Trying to catch up with him, she asks what's wrong, but Ferris continues to avoid her and denies her a chance to speak. Unable to keep up any longer, Littera drops down to her knees, still pleading with Ferris to wait. Suddenly, Ferris reaches out his hand and asks if she's okay. He apologizes to Littera, explaining that he never meant to make her uncomfortable. Littera, with unwavering determination, asks Ferris why he has been avoiding her. She grabs hold of his clothes, asserting confidently that he can't escape her now. With an intense gaze, she tells him that they can work through any problem together. Ferris tries to avoid eye contact, feeling embarrassed to reveal the truth. However, Littera astutely understands what's going on in Ferris's mind. She explains that Nikki and Kane have told her about his past and how much he has changed since she came into his life. Ferris feels downcast, belittling himself and admitting that he's nothing more than a fool trapped in self-imposed isolation. He confesses that he struggles to express himself beyond anger and is still at a loss on how to treat Littera well, relying on the etiquette lessons he learned as a child. He acknowledges his unappealing appearance and how he has grown accustomed to lowering himself. Before Ferris can dwell further on his self-esteem, Littera gently touches his chin, urging him to stop. She caresses his face, bringing her face close to his. Ferris blushes in confusion, but suddenly, Littera bumps her forehead against his. Okay, let's forget about any romantic imaginings for now. Just a friendly reminder that this is not your typical fantasy romance. Getting back on her feet, Littera raises her voice and boldly questions Ferris about his audacity to wallow in self-pity in front of the female protagonist. Ferris, rubbing his head in pain, is totally thrown off by Littera's outburst, not understanding at all why she reacted that way. Littera goes on to explain that she's tired of hearing the same old thing, asserting that she's not some extraordinary prize herself. After all, she's lived through 2 lives, both of which ended poorly. Plus, she points out that she's considerably older than Ferris too. Trying to level the playing field, she proudly declares that she has no shame in marrying a man who is a third her age. Littera reveals that the people around her have made her promise to make Ferris happy, and the high regard in which he is held by his loyal servants is proof enough that he is a good man. Extending her hand, she implores Ferris to stop wallowing in self-pity, emphasizing that his past doesn't change a thing about how she feels about him. As Littera utters those words, a glimmer of hope flickers inside Ferris's heart. With a wide, radiant smile, Littera urges Ferris to take her hand, playfully asking if he plans to spend the whole day on the floor. As he grasps her hand, a sense of relief washes over Ferris's heart. Holding each other's hands, they walk together, with Ferris's heart unable to resist the enchanting way Littera treats him. Still holding hands, Littera starts freaking out because she realizes Ferris is getting interested in her and becoming completely attached. She can't help but think it's her own fault for falling into the cliché of being the savior for a guy who's all brooding and lonely. Looking at Ferris, Littera can't believe he's so easily swayed by a few sweet words. Kids these days are just too gullible. But really, Littera just can't stand seeing her dear friend in such a terrible mood, so she wonders how they ended up in this situation. She contemplates taking responsibility for him, but deep down, she's still haunted by her own past traumas. While desperately trying to figure out what's best for both of them, Ferris reassures her not to worry. As he opens the door, he says she can pretend not to know about his feelings if it makes her uncomfortable because he doesn't want to be a burden. Littera is blown away by Ferris's thoughtfulness and asks if he's sure he can't read her mind because he seems to understand exactly how she feels. While strolling outside, Ferris tells Littera that she's already done so much for him that he couldn't possibly ask for more. Littera expresses her concern that it might be frustrating for him, even though she finds him incredibly precious. However, she's still too caught up in her own past wounds to express herself fully. She feels like a hypocrite for complaining about her own behavior earlier, but Ferris reassures her, saying he doesn't find her frustrating or silly at all. Holding her hands tightly, Ferris locks eyes with Littera and tells her not to exhaust herself worrying about everything, because he's already happier than he ever thought possible. He doesn't want to be the reason for her having any regrets. Littera tries to avoid eye contact, feeling bad for him, and takes a step back to create some distance. She mentions that even though she promised to be his lifelong companion, she tends to do things her own way. Suddenly, her foot gets stuck in the snow, and Littera feels awkward and embarrassed, ruining the moment. In an instant, Ferris lifts her up to help her, surprising Littera with his swift reaction. But Littera feels even more embarrassed and asks Ferris to put her down. Firmly, Ferris expresses his concern about Littera getting stuck again, considering there's a lot of snow around. He suggests they'd be better off staying indoors, and Littera can't argue with that. In their cozy room, the fireplace is already roaring. Ferris helps Littera take off her boots and prepares some hot water to warm her up. He gently places her foot in the water, but Littera insists that she can do it herself. Aware of how poorly she handles the cold, Ferris asks her to let him take care of it. Littera thinks it's just a bit of snow and there's no need for him to be so overprotective. Ferris rolls up his sleeves, revealing his muscular arm that leaves Littera in awe. He tells her to lean back and relax as he starts giving her a foot massage. Littera gives in and tells Ferris to do as he pleases. His gentle touch and pressure release the tension in her foot. While observing Ferris's hands, Littera notices the calluses and asks if they bother him. She quickly corrects herself, realizing that he must have led a tough life. Comparing herself, who always complains about how hard her life is. With her practically flawless hands, no cuts or calluses, she feels humbled. Ferris tells her that not all wounds are visible on the outside and expresses his admiration for her ability to keep living after experiencing death twice. He says even the toughest warriors would struggle with that. After drying Littera's feet with a towel, Ferus advises her not to compare herself to others. Littera, deeply touched by his considerate words, finds it hard to respond. Ferus asks if he crossed a line, to which Littera says she actually feels much better. She explains that she never expected someone to understand her so well. Ferris is right. Littera has been through a lot, but she's still here, so she should be proud of herself. Caressing Ferris's face gently, Littera asks him to be patient with her as she promises to overcome her struggles soon. She plants a soft kiss on Ferris's forehead, telling him that, for now, she hopes it will be enough. Ferris is taken aback, surprised by her sudden gesture. Littera believes that someday she will be able to fully reciprocate Ferris's feelings. Ferris is still caught off guard, and Littera playfully teases his reaction. With a smile on her face, she confidently states that she believes they can make a great couple. Feeling shy and blushing, Ferris assures her that he will do his best to be a good husband. Meanwhile, news about the northern beast finding a wife spreads like wildfire among the nobles. They start gossiping about Littera, who they consider somewhat of an oddity for never having made her debut in high society, despite being in her 20s. They labeled them as the perfect couple, with Littera being dubbed the Southern Freak and Ferris the Northern Beast. When Baron Myrto, Littera's father, hears these rumors, he becomes furious and refuses to believe that his daughter married the Northern Beast. Driven by anger, he decides to travel to the north and personally bring Littera back. So, Littera's parents are heading up north to see her, even though her mother thinks it might not be necessary since Littera's all grown up now. Maureen Myrto, Littera's mother, suggests that her husband should try sending Littera a letter first if he's concerned about the rumors. But Baron Myrto doesn't care about the gossip. He's only worried about his daughter's safety. Baroness Myrto assures him that the rumors about Duke Turman are blown out of proportion. But Baron Myrto still believes what he witnessed at the palace banquet, where Duke Turman went crazy and wreaked havoc, scaring everyone half to death. No one ever talked about that night again. Baroness Myrto wonders why Duke Turman wasn't immediately thrown into the dungeons, and it turns out the Emperor found it all amusing. Ever since then, Duke Turman has stayed up north. Baron Myrto is confused about why Littera would marry such a man and worries she might be in danger. Baroness Myrto starts considering rescuing Littera, like they're on a mission to save a princess locked away by some evil villain. While holding Ferris' hand, Littera is completely taken aback when her parents show up out of nowhere. Ferris, being the polite guy he is, apologizes for the lack of preparation and assures Littera's parents that they can ask for anything they need. Both of Littera's parents are in complete shock at the sight before them. Littera, unharmed, and Ferris, cool as a cucumber. They can't even believe their own eyes when they see Ferus treating their daughter like a princess. Littera's mom can't believe her husband let himself get carried away, and now he's in awe of the reality in front of him. He just can't wrap his head around Ferris' incredible transformation. Ferus politely asks why they've come to visit, and Littera's mom responds bluntly, expressing their worry for their daughter. Baron Myrto gets worried by her straightforwardness. Littera, confused by her parents' reasoning, asks why. Littera's mother explains that they were concerned about Littera's weak health and were shocked to find out she had disappeared, and then heard news that she was up here in the freezing north. Littera is baffled by the revelation that her parents have changed. In the original story and even in her past life, her parents barely paid any attention to her, and this might just be the most they've ever spoken to each other, even in this lifetime. Littera can't help but ask why they suddenly care about her when they've never shown any interest in her life before. Upon hearing this, Littera's father slams the table in disbelief. He explains that ever since Littera was born, she was constantly sick and almost died multiple times. He never bothered introducing her to high society and never cared about the gossip it caused. He raises his voice, expressing his disappointment in Littera for expecting him not to care when she goes and marries some wild creature. Ferris calmly summarizes the situation, saying that Littera's father is basically here because he doesn't approve of him. Littera's father realizes he was too harsh, so he quickly apologizes. Surprisingly, Ferris remains calm and tells them they can speak their minds without worrying about hurting his feelings because he's used to hearing such things. But Littera tells Ferris that it's okay for him to get angry at comments like that. Ferris explains that he can't really complain because he brought that perception upon himself. Moreover, as Baron Myrto is Littera's father, it's his duty to be a respectful son-in-law. He says this with a shy expression. Of course, Littera's father is truly shocked to hear and witness Ferris's unexpected response. Littera's father not only gets shocked, but he actually faints, leaving Ferris deeply apologetic for the whole situation. Littera's mother pushes her unconscious husband aside and demands to know how they ended up getting married. Both Littera and Ferris are caught off guard by this sudden attack. Littera reluctantly responds, saying that they had a connection from a past life, not even attempting to lie. But Littera's mother thinks it's a joke and insists on a serious answer. So Littera tries another approach, claiming that she met Farus while traveling and it was love at first sight. Of course, Littera's mother doesn't buy it, as she knows the type of attractive men Littera usually goes for. Littera is shocked and panicked, questioning how her mother knows her preferences when she's never discussed them. Ferris, now paying attention to their conversation, catches on to one of Littera's preferences: pretty men. Littera, still in a panic, tells Ferris not to believe it, and even blames her mother for making such a statement in front of her husband. Littera's mother then mentions that she won't force Littera to tell the truth, but the least she could have done was inform her parents about the marriage. She expresses her disappointment in only finding out through the news. Littera apologizes, realizing she messed up. She had assumed their relationship would be the same as in her past life, and never expected them to care so much about her. While enjoying her tea, Littera's mother casually mentions that there's no need for Littera to apologize and admits that they were at fault for not expressing themselves properly. She adds that it's a huge relief to see Littera living well in the north. Littera, happily holding Ferris's hand, chimes in and says that she feels incredibly comfortable here, all thanks to her husband. Witnessing this, Littera's mother feels a wave of relief and believes that Littera and Ferris make a truly happy couple. However, she notices that Littera's father is still out of it and asks if they can stay for a few days. Farus gladly grants them permission to stay as long as they'd like. As night falls, Ferris and Littera have a little chat about the events of the day. Littera expresses her surprise at her parents' unexpected visit and apologizes to Ferris for putting him in an awkward situation. Ferris cheerfully brushes it off, saying it's no big deal because he knew he would have to meet the in-laws at some point. Curiously, he asks Littera for more details about what her father mentioned earlier regarding her almost dying as a child. Littera explains that since her reincarnation used up her owed wish, the protective blessing she had previously received had nearly vanished. Naturally, her small body was overwhelmed, and she had to face it all alone. She admits that she never imagined this would make her parents worry about her even more than before. Ferris looks concerned for her, but Littera reassures him that she's completely fine now. Expressing his worry, Ferris acknowledges that it couldn't have been an easy time for her. Littera insists that it wasn't as bad as he might think, and that she was able to endure it by thinking of the letter they once shared. With a bright smile, she credits Ferris for helping her get through it all. Feeling a bit shy, she confesses that if it weren't for her trauma, she might have proposed to Ferris properly instead of just offering a contractual marriage. Hearing this revelation, Ferris blushes like a beet. He leans closer to Littera's face and expresses his desire to continue being an even greater source of support for her. While chilling together on their bed, Ferris and Littera discuss how they can change Littera's father's perspective about Ferris. Lying on Ferris's lap, Littera suggests an idea. They should continue showing how well they get along. In other words, they need to go on a date. Ferris expresses his doubts about its effectiveness, but Littera believes it's worth a shot. Ferris and Littera decide to go ahead with Littera's plan. Littera sees her father sneaking behind them instead of completely avoiding Ferris, and she takes it as a positive sign. Meanwhile, Littera's father thinks he's invisible and believes he can uncover Ferris's true sinister intentions. Thinking Farus can't fool him, He's fired up and still can't believe Ferris acts sweetly like a cat in front of Littera. However, no matter how closely he stalks them, he can't find any evidence to support his assumptions about Ferris. Littera's mother observes her husband behaving like a child and tells him to stop immediately. But Littera's father, thinking that neither Littera nor Ferris have noticed him, whispers to his wife telling her not to talk to him as it's jeopardizing his cover. Of course, Ferris hears and notices everything, but he continues to play ignorant, trying his best not to react. Although Littera's mother tries to convince her husband that there's nothing to worry about regarding Ferris, Littera's father still believes that Ferris must be plotting something behind their backs. Approaching Ferris and Littera's mother warmly greets them, leaving her stubborn husband behind. They engage in casual conversation, but Littera's father remains convinced that both his wife and daughter have fallen for Ferris's tricks. He contemplates his next move to expose Ferris's wild nature, and notices Jurgen and Nikki whispering, discussing something secretly. Littera's father catches snippets of their conversation, mentioning the Duke's orders and the need to keep them hidden. This only reinforces his belief that Ferris is up to something suspicious. Determined to uncover the truth, he decides to quietly follow the servants. Hiding himself behind a curtain, he wonders what is happening in the dimly lit area. Jurgen informs Ferris that the preparations are complete, but Ferris suddenly glares behind him, mentioning the presence of a spy. Littera's father is taken aback, realizing that he has been caught by Ferris. Pushing the curtain aside, Ferris expresses disappointment that this secret was kept even from Littera, and it's a shame to find her father there. Closing his eyes, Littera's father feels as if his life is coming to an end. However, as he slowly opens his eyes, he is surprised to find himself in the preparation area for a banquet. Ferris hesitantly reveals that he had planned this dinner secretly as a surprise for Littera's parents' visit. He scolds Jurgen and Nikki for not being more careful, but Nikki explains that they intentionally led Littera's father there to clear up any misunderstandings, as Ferus had seemed bothered by his constant spying. Realizing that he has made a fool of himself, Littera's father freezes like a stone. Littera's father confronts Ferris, questioning why Ferris didn't get angry at him despite his lack of trust and crossing boundaries. He accuses Ferris of possibly looking down on his status as a baron. Ferris clarifies that he didn't mean to convey any such message and admits that he has given reasons for suspicion. He expresses how much it warms his heart to know that Littera's parents genuinely care about their daughter's well-being. Littera's father is surprised by Ferris's response and finally acknowledges that Ferris is serious about Littera. Feeling helpless, Littera's father sits on the stairs and shares how Littera never had the chance to experience high society due to her weak body, spending most of her time at home and rarely interacting with others. He then requests Ferris to host a lavish banquet, believing that Littera has become much stronger since coming here and will be able to enjoy it to the fullest. Ferris confidently assures him that he will make the banquet as grand as possible. Littera's father stands up and asks for one more favor. With a loud shout, he urges Ferris to do something about his scruffy appearance. Surprised, Ferris is at a loss for words, but Littera's father insists that he has no choice but to intervene and insists that Ferus follow him. Meanwhile, Littera receives the news about the banquet, and she's taken aback because Ferus never mentioned it to her before. Nikki reveals that they advised Ferris to keep it a secret from Littera to make it a surprise. He succeeded in keeping it hidden from her. With Nikki's help, Littera gets dressed up beautifully, although she's a bit worried since it's been decades since she last dressed up like this. In a rush to reach the hall, she bumps into Ferris halfway and is surprised by his new appearance. Ferris explains that he originally planned to come and pick her up but had to change his clothes. Feeling a bit unsure, Ferris starts to doubt if his new look really suits him, and he's afraid of ending up embarrassing Littera. But in reality, Littera is completely captivated by Ferris' fresh look. She can't take her eyes off him and never expected to see him in such a stunning appearance. She compliments him, saying it suits him so well and he looks incredibly charming, almost like a model. Ferris feels relieved and teases Littera about being a pretty man now, playfully bringing it up again, making her feel a bit embarrassed. As they step into the banquet hall, Littera's parents greet them, expressing their delight that they finally arrived. Littera is taken aback by the number of guests present, thinking it was meant to be a family dinner. Ferris explains that since it's been a long time since a banquet was held there, he invited the servants and knights as well, believing the more, the merrier. He further adds that since they didn't have a wedding, he wanted to make this event grand to show how much he treasures Littera. He worries if he went too far, but Littera assures him that she even plans to teach him how to be more selfish. Extending her hand, she suggests they have a dance together. At first surprised, Ferris then takes her hand but hesitates to kiss it. Littera notices and assures him to act the same as everyone else, as she believes he would never do anything to hurt her. With a gentle kiss on her hand, Ferris asks her to dance again, and without hesitation, Littera eagerly agrees. Thinking back to the first time she saw Ferris, Littera never could have imagined things turning out like this. But now, they're like a genuine couple. Littera's father, witnessing his daughter dancing so joyfully with Ferris, gets overwhelmed with emotion and even sheds a tear of happiness. He never thought this day would come. And he's not the only one. Cain and Jurgen also shed tears of happiness to see their master so genuinely happy. Acknowledging her husband's observation, Littera's mother agrees that it truly is wonderful to see Littera and Ferris so blissful together. After the banquet wraps up, Littera and Ferris relax together, basking in the satisfaction of seeing Littera's happiness as a result of Ferris's hard work. Even her parents went home content. Littera suggests that it would be great if they could have more fun moments like that in the future, and she enjoyed seeing Ferris all dressed up. Observing Ferris's face, Littera playfully tilts his face from side to side, making Ferris wonder if there's something on his face. But Littera reassures him that he's quite the handsome one, and imagines that without the facial hair, he might look a little less fierce. Curious about his current appearance, she asks if there's a specific reason behind it. To satisfy Littera's curiosity, Ferris shares the story behind his look. He explains that he has some imperial blood in him, which has made him a target for threats against the things he holds dear. When he was young and inexperienced, a monster left a scar across his face while he was out hunting, and he noticed that the attention directed at him significantly decreased afterward. This made him realize how much aristocratic identity was tied to appearance. From that point on, Ferris made a conscious effort not to be seen as a noble, and to show his disinterest and lack of ambition in politics. That's why he would often act wild and violent, not caring about the increased isolation it brought upon him. He wanted to match the expectations of those noble folks in their glittering spires, who saw him as nothing more than a savage beast slaughtering monsters. Thinking about Littera, Ferris suggests finding a new approach, but Littera interrupts and tells him he doesn't need to. Wrapping her arms around Ferris, she expresses her understanding of him. Littera emphasizes that Ferris doesn't have to carry all the burdens alone, and offers her hand for him to lean on. Tenderly touching his face while gazing into his eyes, Littera declares that she wants to stand by Ferris's side and protect the North together. She believes that no matter how rough he may appear on the outside, he is the man she wants to find happiness with. Ferris' face turns red as he listens to Littera's determination. Holding her tightly, he declares that the North belongs to both of them. With his unwavering determination, if anyone dares to harm Littera, he will make them beg for mercy. So, there's this meeting going on among the nobles to talk about Ferris and Littera's wedding. They don't sweat Ferris's lineage because they think Littera is weak, but they still think they gotta watch out for him. Littera gets permission to go into Ferris's room and, surprise, Ferus is rocking a pair of glasses, teasing him about getting old already. She asks Ferris if any fancy folks have been bothering him since news of their marriage got out. Yep, as a result, Ferris is swamped with work right now. Even though Ferris couldn't care less about politics and power, he's still being eyed suspiciously because of his bloodline. Out of nowhere, Littera plops herself down on Ferris's lap, making Ferris all embarrassed. Littera checks out who's been piling on the workload for Ferris. Turns out, it's the same people who stabbed Littera in the back in her past life. So now she wants to get some revenge and make those jerks go bankrupt. Ferus wants to take care of them right away, but Littera tells Ferris to trust her instead. Littera spots a messy letter and Ferris sheepishly admits that it's for official business. Turns out Ferris already trusted Littera in their previous life, so he used his best handwriting to write letters to her. Littera is thrilled because it means she is someone special to Ferris. It gets Littera thinking about Ferris's old letters, wondering if she could have them now, too. Speaking of which, Ferus gets curious about how they managed to keep up their pen-pal friendship in the past, especially considering Littera's husband, the prince, was completely obsessed with her. So, it turned out the prince was too full of himself to see Ferus as a rival and thought Littera just pitied him. Remembering all this makes Littera mad all over again. Just when things are getting intense, a guest suddenly shows up. It's a priest called to check on Littera because she used to be sick. After the checkup, they find out there's no major issue, but it will be better for them to stick together a lot. The priest explains that if Littera and Ferus stick close together, the god's power within her will slowly regain. So they decide to tackle all the tasks together and have some leisure time exploring the duchy. But Ferris, ever ready with his sword, is on the lookout for any sudden monster attacks. With a confident grin, he declares that he'll protect Littera and the duchy when the time comes. While strolling around, I come across a fountain that's been turned off due to the weather. It used to be a spot where people made wishes. Ferris asks if Littera wants to make a wish, but what Littera desires is to peacefully die in this life. However, Ferus makes another wish, hoping that Littera can live happily without any regret. Blushing, Littera hides her face behind Ferris's cape and tells him to make a wish for himself instead. She realizes she needs to express her feelings to Ferris, but just as she's about to do so, the sudden roar of a monster catches them off guard. Ferus starts to get annoyed by the sudden appearance of the monster, totally ruining their romantic moment. With a concerned tone, Littera asks where she should hide, but Ferus decides the safest place is to take her along with him. So this is what Kane was trying to explain to her earlier when she asked about Ferris's swordsmanship skills. The scene unfolding before her eyes is proof that he's the freaking best swordmaster in the whole empire. Littera is amazed by how effortlessly Ferus wipes out the monsters. It's like he's superhuman or something. She notices Ferris using his cape to shield her from the monster's blood. Worried, she expresses her concern, but Ferus brushes it off as nothing. He can take care of those monsters like it's second nature to him. As a result, Littera remains unscathed without a single drop of blood on her. But Littera doesn't want to be the only one who stays clean. She wants to be his partner, so she hugs him tightly and thanks him. Seeing her like that, Ferris can't resist her. Back in the castle, they have a cozy pillow talk together. Ferris asks what she wanted to say before the monster attacked. Littera leans in closer, gently kissing him on the cheek, saying that was what she wanted to do. But this sudden attack catches Ferris off guard. He thinks Littera is just teasing him, but she moves her face closer, their lips almost touching. However, her hand prevents their lips from making contact. Ferris feels embarrassed, and Littera tries to explain that she wanted to express her feelings to him, but her past traumas still hold her back. She suggests that it should be Ferris who initiates the kiss on the lips. Ferus can't believe what he's hearing and tries to pretend he didn't hear it. But then Littera explains that she wants their relationship to progress because she wants to be closer to him. Hesitant at first, Ferris musters up the courage to make a move, assuring Littera to let him know if she feels uncomfortable. He starts with a kiss on her forehead, then her cheek, and finally, the moment we've all been waiting for, they kiss on the lips. I swear, I can practically hear their heartbeats pounding from here. As their lips part, Littera comments that it was fast, but Ferus, with a face all red from shyness, honestly confesses that his heart felt like it was going to burst in no time if they did more than that. Hearing this, Littera teases him even more, laughing uncontrollably because despite his coolness in battling monsters, he has this adorable side to him. Ferus admits that it was his first kiss, which is why he reacted that way. Blushing, Littera shyly reveals that kissing him made her feel good and tells Ferris to reject her request if it's not comfortable for him. Tenderly touching her face, Ferus assures her that all her requests are okay with him. He just needs some time to get used to it. Then he places another gentle kiss on her face. But now they both seem nervous, and I bet they won't sleep well tonight. Oh, you won't believe it. Littera wakes up with panda eyes, but instead of finding Ferris next to her, she finds a letter. It's a letter from Ferris, showing how considerate he is. Now she can have Ferris letters too, not just from her past life. He even hopes those letters will light up her life. How sweet is that? After writing a response letter, she calls out to Nikki, who's totally clueless about delivering a letter to her husband under the same roof. But hey, when Littera mentions a bonus, Nikki's all like, "Hell yeah, let's do this." Littera hands over 2 letters, one for Ferris and another for her friend, who lives out west. When her friend gets the letter from Littera, the dude with the long blue hair gets this huge grin on his face. Well, it turns out Littera asked him to lend a hand in making some of those snobby nobles go bankrupt. The day finally arrives when Littera's friend pays a visit. Without wasting a second, he calls Littera his dear and gives her a big hug, leaving Firuz in complete shock with eyes almost popping out. Littera quickly pushes her friend away and tells Ferris right away that whatever he's thinking is totally not the case. This dude's name is Karda, and even though he's still young, he's a big-shot businessman from the West. Since the dude is a pro at keeping secrets, Littera becomes buddies with him in both her past life and this one. Firuz is getting seriously annoyed seeing Karda all clingy with his wife, so he yanks him away. But Ferris can't really do much more than that, because, let's face it, Karda was the one who helped Littera finally meet him in this life. So it's like Karda is on his side whether he likes it or not. Trying his best to put on his best smile for Karda, Ferris tells him to have a great time. And you bet your bottom dollar that when Karda sees Ferris's smile, he starts thinking he might not make it out of this castle alive. Littera hands Karda the documents she and Ferris were working on together, telling Ferris that it's probably best to let the expert handle the job. Giving Ferris a gentle touch on his face, she says she just wants to live happily there without those sneaky nobles interrupting. But guess what? This time, it's not some monster ruining their romantic moment, it's Karda! He notices that he can't call Littera dear anymore, so he playfully asks her to make him her second. And now, check out the shocked expressions on Duke and Duchess Termin's faces. They're priceless. Firuz can't help but wonder if what he's feeling right now is straight-up jealousy. But then, out of the blue, Karda chimes in with his 2 cents, saying that with a perfect lady like Littera, she deserves so much more. Surprisingly, Ferris agrees, leaving Littera in total shock. They even start bonding over how many men Littera could have by her side. Karda suggests at least 10. Feeling the need to stand up for herself, Littera boldly declares that there's only space for one person in her heart, and that's none other than Firuz. She doesn't need anyone else. After that exhausting ordeal, Karda finally checks the document, making sure he can give it his best shot. Littera, looking tired, leans on Ferris, who's sitting beside her. Seeing them all lovey-dovey, Karda assumes they're in love. But hearing those words, Littera starts feeling bothered by her past traumas. Ferris, noticing his beloved expressing uneasiness, tells Karda to stop making her uncomfortable. But before things escalate further, Littera gently assures Ferris that she's okay and tells him she needs to talk privately with Karda. Without wasting any time, Littera straightforwardly asks Karda why he's been testing her husband from the start. He simply explains that as her friend, he just wanted to make sure the rumors about Ferris weren't true. But he admits that Littera seems to be doing better since she started living there. Karda, who knows Littera has a fear of love, suggests that she express her feelings by saying she likes him instead of outright confessing her love. Sometimes Karda's words are like little nuggets of wisdom that Littera hadn't considered before. She does like Ferris, but she's never actually told him. Karda then swiftly pushes Littera to have a heart-to-heart with Ferris, who's feeling down and regretting what he did to Littera's friend. Littera calls out to Ferris, avoiding eye contact, and nervously tells him she wants to talk. But Ferris, being his dramatic self, has already concocted a whole scene in his mind, worrying about what she's going to say. However, noticing his somber expression, Littera quickly clarifies that it's not what he's thinking. Taking a stroll outside, Littera is still nervously contemplating how to express her intentions. Out of the blue, Firuz kneels down, holding Littera's hand, and expresses his desire to stay by her side. He even tells her that if she chooses another man, he's totally cool with it as long as she's happy. For Ferris, being with her is more than enough. But he kinda ruins the moment by saying he's okay being the second or even the 10th. Getting closer to Ferris, Littera tells him that she likes him, although she can't promise the same level of feelings as him. After helping to solidify their relationship, Carta can finally head back home without any worries. Seeing Littera putting in her best effort to face her trauma, Firuz opens up about his own. He shares that his parents had a best friend, an unbreakable bond. But in the end, greed for power tore them apart and caused the death of both Ferris's parents. Firuz always remembers his father's last words, advising him not to trust anyone. This has made it difficult for Ferris to easily trust others, but his desire to live without regrets in life has given him the courage to take Littera's hand. Holding her tightly, Firuz confesses that he likes her and wants to overcome his fears with her, the one who reached out to him first. A letter from Carta arrives, informing them that he's taken care of the job as soon as he arrived in the West. He mentions that it will take around 1-2 months to see the results. In the letter, he also brings up the sudden monster attacks in the south and expresses concern about what might be happening in the north, where Littera lives. It seems like the story of the novel is about to kick off. Littera spills the beans to Ferris about what she knows on how to save the world from its downfall. And there they are, climbing the freaking mountain in the middle of a heavy snowstorm. Apparently, there's this special flower in the North Mountains that can solve the whole problem. This flower has some holy power that can restore balance to the world and even kick monster butt. Since only the chosen one can pick this holy flower, Littera has no choice but to face the challenge head-on. But hey, lucky for her, she's got Firuz by her side to help complete this mission. They take a break in a cave to rest up. Littera sticks close to Ferris, wrapped in both his body heat and his coat, finally feeling warm. So, turns out what the priest said was true. By sticking close to Ferris, her powers slowly start coming back. Oh, but look at Ferris' red face! He's blushing like crazy. Littera reveals that in her past life, Firuz didn't lift a finger to help, not even when the prince himself asked for it. And come on, Ferris can't deny it. Before meeting Littera, he didn't give a damn about what went down in the world. He was all about the North. That's it. But now, if they want to live happily ever after with their loved ones, they've got to put a stop to the world's downfall. Yeah, it's gonna be exhausting and the toughest task ever. But they're both on the same page now, living happily together. Alone in the cave, sharing some freaking romantic moments together. You know what comes next, right? Yep, it's kissing time. This time, Littera notices that Ferris' kissing skills have improved. She playfully teases him, asking where he learned that from. And once again, Ferris is the one being bullied by her teasing. All embarrassed, Ferris tries to run away, declaring that one day he'll become more mature so that Littera can't tease him anymore. Littera explains that the reason she likes to tease Ferris is not only because of his cute responses, but also to ease her nerves around him since he has such a strong presence. Now they're both just a blushing mess. But as usual, whenever the moment becomes awkwardly romantic between them, something always has to come out of nowhere and ruin the freaking moment. Firuz is battling the monsters, but the cave is so cramped that it's kinda tough to take them all down. Littera watches from behind, getting worried because Firuz ditched his armor earlier to warm Littera up, and now he doesn't have time to put it back on when the monsters showed up. Ferris fights with reckless abandon, totally disregarding his own safety and only thinking about keeping Littera safe. Littera realizes she needs to do something. Bam! An arrow lands perfectly, taking down one of the monsters. Ferris breathes a sigh of relief and wonders who came to his aid. He turns around and is shocked to see Littera standing there, the one who helped him. He expresses his concern to Littera, but she assures him that she can handle it. Even though pulling the arrow out was a bit tough for her, she asked Nikki to bring her the simplest weapon for the weakest folks to use. Farouz says that everyone in the castle can fight, so their definition of simple and weak is totally different. He pleads with her to ask for his help next time. But then Littera, with her sharp eyes, launches a counterattack, telling him that he was reckless earlier, not caring if he got hurt while fighting the monsters. Littera wants him to be more careful with himself, not just with others. But since it's time to take a break, they can continue the scolding tomorrow. And the scolding session continues. They walk side by side and Littera keeps going on and on, nagging at Ferris, telling him this and that, expressing her worry. But Ferris just smiles and blushes, saying he actually feels happy that Littera cares about him so much. Seeing how cute Ferris is acting, Littera stops nagging and tightly holds his hand, saying that it feels like they're on their honeymoon. But then, out of the blue, Littera freezes up and gets all jittery. She remembers that whenever things start getting romantic, some dumb crap always comes along to ruin it. And sure enough, there it is, a gigantic monster that Littera has to take down. To make matters worse, the holy flower that Littera is supposed to pick is sitting right on top of the monster's head. Ferris' face turns pale upon seeing it. Ferris dashes forward, clutching Littera, all set to take on the big boss. Littera admits it won't be a cakewalk, but Ferris believes that just because something's tough doesn't mean it's impossible. He swiftly slices off the monster's arm, leaving Littera utterly gobsmacked. Urging Ferris to hurl her at the monster's head to grab the flower, Littera braces herself for an epic showdown. After an intense battle, Farouz reluctantly tosses Littera, who tenaciously plucks the sacred flower from the monster's noggin. As the flower is plucked, the monster freezes and crumples to the ground. Falling gracefully, Littera remains unfazed, having complete faith in Farouz. Astonished, Ferris scrambles to catch her, expressing his hope that it's their first and last such ordeal. But with a genuine smile, Littera assures him that there will be more challenges, although not in the immediate future. Inside the temple, the high priest, engrossed in prayer, suddenly senses a tremendous surge of divine power emanating from the north. Back at the castle, Littera kicks back and relaxes in the bath, letting go of her stress and contemplating recent events. Determined to confront her fears and leave her trauma behind, she resolves to face her emotions for her loved ones, particularly Ferris, and create beautiful memories with him. Grabbing her bathrobe, she's taken aback to find that it's not hers, but Farouz's. Meanwhile, Farouz ends up with Littera's bathrobe. He checks in with Jurgen about the progress of extracting the magic stone and instructs him to notify the temple once it arrives. Out of nowhere, Ferris asks Jurgen to check if there are any new wounds on his back, but Jurgen brushes it off, claiming his old age and poor eyesight as excuses and suggesting that Ferris's wife should inspect his wounds instead. Suddenly, Littera enters the room, surprised to hear that Ferris has new injuries. She tenderly tends to Ferris's wounds, expressing her sadness that his body is covered in scars, yet he keeps getting new ones. Ferris embraces Littera and assures her that since he has someone who cares for him, the wounds no longer sting. Out of the blue, Littera voices her uneasiness about their relationship, feeling the need to clarify their current status. But before she can finish, Farouz gently kisses her forehead, assuring her that even if their marriage is contractual, they are already husband and wife in reality, and she doesn't need to doubt it. He then plants a reassuring kiss on Littera's lips, assuring her that their relationship has progressed to the point where they no longer feel nervous about exchanging clothes. Although Littera initially planned to return Ferris's bathrobe, he insists that she keep it, nervously tightening the robe around her. As it turns out, Littera catches a cold from their mountain adventure, so they summon the priest to provide treatment. Ferris, overwhelmed with worry for Littera, can't help but voice his concerns to the priest, desperately wanting to know when she will recover. Littera tries to reassure him, stating that it's just the flu, but Ferris, wearing a worried expression, tells her not to underestimate her illness. Noticing that the priest treating her is actually the high priest Astrum in disguise as a young priest, Littera directly asks him why he went through the trouble of disguising himself and coming all the way to the north. Littera already has a hunch that it must be because of the holy flower she picked. The high priest explains that he sensed a powerful holy energy emanating from the north and, to avoid political issues with the empire, he chose to conceal his identity. Initially, High Priest Astrum planned to seek Ferris's assistance in finding the chosen one with great divine power, but it turns out to be none other than Littera. Ferris asks the High Priest to keep Littera's divine power a secret, his expression firm as he states that he doesn't want anyone bothering her. The High Priest agrees, ensuring that Littera can live a peaceful life. Suddenly, Ferris asks the High Priest with utmost seriousness to heal Littera as quickly as possible. However, Littera still finds it hard to believe that Ferus is so worried about her, considering it's just a common flu. Approaching and holding Littera's hand, Ferris explains that it's the first time he's experienced such deep concern for his wife falling ill. Looking at Littera with innocent eyes, Ferris pleads with her to allow him to be childish in his worry. Littera tries to understand Ferus's emotions, embracing him and assuring him that he can be as he pleases, as long as he stays by her side to care for her. As the High Priest Astrum and Priest Owner walk back through the hallway, Priest Owner comments on how sweet Littera and Ferris's relationship is, as if they are destined to be together. However, upon hearing this, High Priest Astrum honestly admits that he doesn't share the same sentiment. He believes that Ferus's reputation will ultimately harm Littera in the future, leading him to secretly plan to separate them both, as he believes it's for Littera's own good. It's been days since Littera has been confined to her bed, and she complains to Ferris that she wants to do some exercise to feel better. However, Ferris still worries about her and feeds her a sliced apple, suggesting she take it easy. While munching on the apple, Littera asks Ferris what kind of sports she can do that would also be fun. Ferris then suggests equestrian. Once Littera fully recovers, Ferris takes her to the horse stable, explaining that the horses in the north have evolved a bit. But when Littera sees the horses, she is taken aback by how different they are from the horses she's used to. They even eat meat! Ferus explains that although they are mixed breeds with monsters, they are still gentle and obedient horses. Littera takes a leisurely ride with Ferris, guiding from the side. She feels like they're on a date, and Ferris, with a blush on his face, tries to explain that since Littera's always busy, he wants her to enjoy the moment and slow down a bit. Hearing this, Littera feels a warmth in her heart, realizing that Ferus understands her better than she does herself. Suddenly, Ferus asks to ride together with her and tells her to hold on tight as he spurs the horse faster. While enjoying the beautiful view of the north, Ferus assures Littera that he will always be by her side, whether she's running or slowing down, and that he will always support her. Hearing these comforting words, Littera feels relieved, as if her burdens have suddenly vanished. Well, let's give them some privacy to enjoy the moment. In the palace, apparently, High Priest Astrum instigates Prince Everett, suggesting that helping to free Littera from the clutches of the Monster Duke would enhance his reputation. Everett seems to agree, but since he doesn't know Littera, he doesn't want to fight Ferris and break a sweat. His fiancée, Manila, extends her hand to help the prince approach Littera in order to annul her marriage to Ferris. Oh, please! How rude people can be these days! Littera is taken aback when she receives an invitation letter from Manila. In her previous life, they were buddies, but the novel portrayed a bad end for Manila. Littera didn't want that to happen, so she tried to change the course of events by giving Manila the position she desired. She even became political teacher and drinking buddies. However, Manila's family doesn't get along with Ferris due to the potential threat he poses to their political standing. Littera wonders why she suddenly received the invitation. But Ferus assures her that she can go if she wants to and tries to convince her that he's completely fine with it and will wait for her. Littera notices Ferris's true expression, which reveals that he's trying his best to hide his worry. She then asks Ferris to accompany her instead. While waiting for Littera's carriage to arrive, Manila can't believe that Littera accepted her invitation. She had planned to send more invitations as a courtesy if Littera hadn't replied, and then informed the emperor that Littera was being held captive by the monster duke. However, as you know, plans don't always go as expected. Accompanied by her father, Manhwa is ready to welcome Littera. But to their surprise, it's not Littera who takes the first step, but Ferus. They never expected Ferus to accompany his wife. At that moment, Manhwa realizes that Littera is not just an ordinary person. Littera casually takes off her earrings and plops them on the table, getting comfortable and forgetting about manners. Seeing this, Manhwa can't help but wonder how Littera lacks manners despite coming from a poor noble family. Without wasting any more time, Littera bluntly asks Manhwa why she invited her. Since Littera doesn't socialize in high society and won't bring any advantage to Manhwa, she wants to know the real reason. Observing Littera's behavior, Manhwa tries to engage in small talk about the news she heard of Ferus finally getting a wife. Knowing Manhwa is just making an excuse, Littera decides to act bolder as people already think she's a freak. She purposefully nudges her cup, causing the tea to spill, and asserts that Manhwa reveals her true intentions. Manhwa believes she can't be swayed by Littera's behavior, so she remains calm, smiles, and assures Littera that they can chat and relax. Observing Manhwa's composure, Littera realizes she needs to make a move to uncover Manhwa's true intentions. Meanwhile, Manhwa's father is overwhelmed by what Ferus did to his knights. Even though Ferus was just practicing, he managed to defeat all of them with a mere tree branch. Out of nowhere, a young man with a mask on his face emerges from the trees and nervously asks Ferus if he can learn swordsmanship from him. Ferus recalls that before they got there, Littera gave him a heads up. If you come across a dude with wild orange hair, rocking a mask, and going by the name Topaz, be cool with him. So Ferus agrees to give the guy some swordsmanship lessons, and with a big old grin on his face, he imagines Littera will be thrilled. But for everyone else, Ferus's grin definitely gives off some spooky vibes. Back with Littera and Manhwa, it seems like Littera is rambling on about her sweet relationship with Ferus, which annoys Manhwa. Manhwa suspects it might be a made-up story to mask Littera's true feelings, so she tries to uncover the truth. Manhwa asks if Littera has ever disliked Ferus. Finally catching her off guard, Littera remarks that Manhwa has finally asked what she wanted to know all along. Not stopping there, Littera gets straight to the point and asks if Manhwa wants to hear her complaints about her husband and help them separate. She even goes as far as mentioning High Priest Astrum as the mastermind behind it all. Shocked by this revelation, Manhwa wonders how Littera knows about it. So, this is how Littera puts the pieces together. Knowing Manhwa from her past life, Littera is well aware of Manhwa's behavior. See, Manhwa always hides her true feelings by using a fan to cover her mouth, but when she wants to speak the truth, she unconsciously touches her mouth with her hand. And that's exactly what happened when she asked Littera if she ever disliked Ferus. Plus, back in her previous life, High Priest Astrum tried to break up Littera and Ferus' friendship, so Littera assumes it's the same story this time around. She jumps to the conclusion that Astrum is behind all this drama. Realizing she can't outsmart Littera, Manhwa finally spills the beans. She confesses that she thought helping Everett would benefit her, but now she sees that her whole plan has crumbled before her eyes. Littera, with a big smile, thanks Manhwa for being honest. And seeing Littera's response, Manhwa decides to spill more details. She promises to tell Everett that Littera and Ferus have an unbreakable bond. Manhwa admits that being Littera's enemy will only cause her trouble, so she proposes a deal. Since doing this puts her at a disadvantage, Manhwa asks Littera for help when she needs it. And in return, Littera agrees to assist Manhwa in any way she can, as long as it doesn't involve separating from Ferus. Spotting Ferus with Topaz, Littera calls out to him, letting him know she's ready to go. Without hesitation, they embrace each other, publicly displaying their affection. Before leaving the castle, Littera bids farewell to Manhwa, hinting that they might cross paths again soon. As Manhwa contemplates Littera's words, Topaz notices the earrings that don't belong to Manhwa. In shock, Manhwa suddenly remembers that they belong to Littera. Meanwhile, Littera wonders if Manhwa is currently puzzled by the situation. As they make their way back, Littera spills her plan to Ferus. She wants to use Manila to seek revenge on Everett. She also expresses gratitude to Ferris for being kind to Topaz, as it helps her plan go more smoothly. Turns out, Topaz's real name is Fever, and he's actually Ferris's cousin, being the Emperor's illegitimate child. Marquis Tekka took in orphans, including Fever, to hide the fact that he's the Emperor's son. Ferris suspects that the Tekka family wants Fever to take over Everett's position. That's why Manila is getting close to Everett to make things easier. In this life, Littera is determined to help Manila execute her plan, hitting two birds with one stone, getting revenge without directly getting involved in politics, and repaying Manila for encouraging and convincing Littera to marry Ferris in their past life. Upon hearing this, Ferris firmly declares that he will protect the Tekka family as well. Blushing, Ferus draws closer to Littera as he explains that because of Manila's encouragement in her past life, he can be more than just friends with Littera now. Nikki knocks on the carriage door, letting them know they've arrived at the inn. But with no response, she opens the door only to catch the lovebirds in the middle of a passionate kiss. Suddenly, she regrets outdoing Jurgen to become the coachman for this trip. Instead of a monster attack, it's Nikki who catches them off guard. Inside the room, as usual, they engage in cozy pillow talk as lovers do. Littera expresses her overwhelming happiness for marrying Ferris and thanks him for always being there for her. Ferris, not one to be outdone, pulls her in tighter and says that he's the one who feels eternally grateful for her. To prevent their conversation from becoming a never-ending cycle of gratitude, Ferus suggests they get some sleep since Littera plans to show him a special place tomorrow, and she believes that he's gonna love it. The next day, they decide to have a picnic. Littera feels a twinge of guilt that Nikki isn't there with them, but Ferus knows his subordinate well and assures Littera that Nikki is probably enjoying some alone time elsewhere. Littera shares her special place with Ferris, a hidden spot where nobody else knows about, making it their private sanctuary. When she first found herself in the world of the novel, she felt lost and overwhelmed by the situation, grappling with the fact that her older soul was trapped in a young body. Whenever she felt overwhelmed and burdened, she used to escape to this place to release her stress. But now that she has Ferris, she realizes that she can simply run to him whenever she feels overwhelmed. Ferris blushes upon hearing this, still expressing his self-doubts. However, Littera convinces him that he truly is amazing, because not many people would easily believe her story of reincarnating twice, yet Ferus genuinely believes in her. Understanding Littera's past feelings of loneliness, Ferris expresses his concern for her. Littera is moved by Ferris's care and reveals that his treatment of her has made her rely on and trust him. Tenderly kissing him, Littera reflects on how having Ferris by her side has erased her feelings of loneliness, and she no longer needs a place to run away to. Meanwhile, Nikki notices something brightly shining near the place where she's resting. It emits a sound and seems to be asking to be taken somewhere as it has urgent information to convey. Littera and Ferris are having a great time together, hoping it'll last forever. But then Ferris brings up how, in the past, whenever things got calm and romantic, something always came along to mess it up. Littera, though, is convinced that won't happen in her special spot since nothing like that has ever occurred there before. But then, out of nowhere, a bright light approaches them, calling out for Littera. Nikki follows the light and explains that she tried to attack the thing because it was calling Littera's name, but her efforts were futile. The light reveals that it's weak without Littera and urgently needs to talk to her. Without wasting any time, the light uses its power to teleport Littera somewhere else. But don't worry, Ferus refuses to let Littera be alone and keeps close to her, asking if she's okay. And then, out of the blue, the light transforms into a god, Noeth, the god who accidentally brought Littera into this novel. Noethi gets straight to the point, explaining that not long after Littera died in her previous life, the world went to pieces. This resulted in ruptures appearing in this world, allowing monsters to escape through them. Noeth does what he can, but he can't fully stop it, so he needs Littera's help. When Littera and Ferris hear this, they're tempted to just leave and forget about it all. However, Noeth assures them that each rupture she closes will restore some of her strength. After giving it some thought, Littera agrees to help. To aid them in their mission, Noeth provides them with a weapon that will last for only half an hour. Since Littera isn't in the best condition to wield it, Ferris takes charge. A brilliant, shining light appears, forming a sword in Ferris' hand, and Noeth leaves them with his final words, expressing his belief that they can save the world. Feruz holds the black sword, and it looks like it suits his taste perfectly. Suddenly, they reappear where Nikki is, who looks puzzled by their sudden disappearance and reappearance. But there's no time for explanations now, as the ruptures Noeth mentioned is starting to form. With one hand carrying Littera, Ferris gets ready to battle the monsters, aided by Nikki, who always has her daggers at the ready. Feruz fearlessly fights the monsters, as he usually does, even managing to have a conversation with Littera in the midst of the chaos. Inspired by Ferris's bravery, Littera also wants to show off her abilities as the chosen one by the god. She uses her power to close the rupture. Once the ordeal is over, Littera's only regret is forgetting to ask Noeth to put a stop to the high priest's meddling in her relationship with Ferris. And you won't believe it, Feruz blushes upon realizing that Littera cares more about their relationship than the state of her sanctuary, which has turned into a mess. Since Littera needs a day to recover and absorb the power from the rupture, she suggests staying at an incredibly luxurious hotel that will make everyone gossip about them. And guess what? The newspapers take care of the gossip, spreading rumors about Littera and Feruz making a dramatic entrance, covered in blood, at the fancy hotel. As expected, other noble guests protest their presence, but Littera and Feruz casually decide to buy the entire building on the spot, showing that they're even more scandalous than the rumors suggested. When the high priest Astrum reads about this in the newspaper, he feels the need to take immediate action. So, apparently, Littera and Feruz have become the talk of the town among the upper class. Even Everett noticed that Littera has stolen Manila's spotlight, who used to be the center of attention. Manila believes that Littera did it intentionally, and if things continue like this, nobody will believe that Littera is a helpless damsel in need of rescue. In fact, she might end up being rejected by everyone. Even if Littera and Ferris are forced to get divorced, she won't be able to marry again. Seeing how Littera doesn't seem bothered by all this, Manila thinks it's best to avoid getting on Littera's bad side for such a trivial matter. She then tells Everett that they won't be able to fulfill the High Priest Astrum's request. Everett agrees with Manila and says he's considered quitting as soon as he heard the news, so staying away from Littera and Ferris is the smartest decision. Meanwhile, Carta teleported straight to where Littera is, laughing out loud while reading the juicy rumors about his best friend. He says that even though Littera hasn't officially debuted in high society yet, she's already the talk of the whole empire. Carta then fills her in on their plan to bankrupt the nobles on their list, showing her news about a new investment trend and rumors of other nobles secretly expanding their businesses. Those clueless nobles think they're trailblazers in the business world, but little do they know they're about to get robbed blind. And thanks to the rumors about Littera and Ferris, Carta's little scheme can remain hidden in the shadows. Noticing Ferris staying cool and composed despite Carta and Littera being so close, Carta asks him if it doesn't bother him to see how well they get along. With a confident smile, Ferris assures Carta that he has no reason to feel threatened. He looks at Littera and affirms that as long as he never betrays her, he knows he'll always be her first choice. When Littera hears Ferris saying that so confidently, she feels incredibly happy and proud. At Myrto's residence, rumors about Littera have already reached her parents, and it's putting a lot of pressure on her father. Apparently, it was High Priest Astrum who brought the news, hoping to manipulate Littera's parents into helping him separate Littera and Feruz. But guess what? No chance! Baron Myrto firmly declares that they won't do anything unless Littera herself asks them to. They're not interested in whatever High Priest Astrum has to say. Back at the temple, High Priest Astrum returns without any success, and there, he is met by Littera and Ferris, who have been waiting for him. Littera boldly confronts High Priest Astrum, stating that he must be extremely busy trying to ruin her life, catching Astrum off guard. He insists on explaining himself to prevent Littera from regretting it later, but she's not buying it. Astrum, who can communicate with the god knoweth, believes that as the chosen one, Littera shouldn't be living with someone who has a bad reputation in the Empire. While Astrum tries to explain the nonsense behind his actions, Littera and Ferris even start playing poker, completely ignoring Astrum's attempts to justify what he thinks is best for Littera without even considering her opinion first. Feeling annoyed, Astrum tells Ferris to have some self-awareness and leave Littera to find her own happiness. Just as Littera tries to stop Astrum from hurting Ferris further, Ferris interjects and says that he used to think the same way, but Littera has boosted his confidence and he's been making a great effort to change his attitude. He states that it's not just Astrum who was initially worried about their relationship, but in the end, everyone came to respect their choice. Pulling Littera closer, Ferris firmly asserts that Astrum has wasted his time interfering in something that is none of his concern. Littera is overjoyed that Ferris has spoken up for her. Now she feels the need to teach Astrum a lesson and give him a punishment even worse than death. Recently granted considerable power from the god Noath, whom Astrum obediently worships, Littera severs the connection between Astrum and Noath, mimicking how he's been trying to tear something precious away from her, without even considering his own opinion on the matter. Turning away, Littera states that the connection will be restored once Astrum fully reflects on what he has done. Littera tells Feruz that it's time for him to exact revenge, but Ferris only wants to offer a few words. He advises Astrum that if he genuinely wants to help, he should not impose his own beliefs but instead engage in discussion with the person he's trying to help. That way, he can truly understand what that person needs. The day Littera and Ferris are gonna head up north, Priest Honor personally comes to apologize for what Astrum did to Littera and Ferris, expressing his regret that Astrum went so far. Getting ready to leave, Littera reassures Priest Honor not to blame himself, and the fact that he came to apologize anyway has put them in a much better mood to return north. Back in the north, Ferris puts a fur coat on Littera, signaling that they have finally arrived at their sweet home. As they walk inside, Ferris lets Littera know that their room has been renovated for better insulation, and he hopes she'll like it. Entering their new room, Littera is totally stoked and thrilled by how considerate Ferris has been. Littera playfully teases Ferris, saying she won't need to borrow his body heat anymore, and that he can sleep in his own room. Hearing this, Ferris freezes and panics, and Littera can't help but enjoy how adorable he is. After taking a deep breath, Ferris finally expresses what's on his mind. He doesn't want to sleep separately. Blushing, he says that since Littera has been encouraging him to be more selfish, he wants to know if it's okay with her. Littera happily says it's more than okay and finds her husband's act incredibly endearing. She apologizes for teasing him and admits that she likes seeing Ferris being a bit greedy. Instead of responding, Ferris pulls Littera closer and surprises her with a kiss, saying that he could never stay mad at her. Now, Littera knows she has to be more careful when teasing Ferris. Jurgen informs them that their new office is ready. Ferris hands Littera the key, saying that he wanted to give her a new office. And guess what? It's incredibly gigantic, much bigger than her own office when she was an empress in her previous life. Littera mentions that she's not used to having such a big space all to herself, and it would be nice to have someone to share it with. She tells Ferris to bring his work, stationery, and glasses to the office too. While they arrange their new workspace together, Feruz lets Littera know that there will be an assembly of the Terman Council and invites her to participate. On the day of the Terman Council's gathering, all the vassals are chilling in the castle, shooting the breeze and getting all curious about Ferris' wife. They've only heard rumors and haven't seen her in person, so they're itching to meet her. Finally, they all step into the assembly room, and Ferris proudly introduces his wife, the amazing Duchess Littera Terman. Littera gives them a warm greeting and apologizes for not saying hey sooner. But, man, they can't believe their eyes. She's nothing like what the papers said, and she's drop-dead gorgeous. Since this assembly is more like a fancy get-together than a stuffy meeting, they start teasing Ferris about how head over heels he is for Littera. But Littera plays along, holding Ferris's hand and saying she just wanted to keep him close. Poor Ferris turns into a blushing mess. One of the vassals can't help but share his thoughts, saying how lucky Ferris is to have such an incredible woman by his side. Now they can finally stop worrying about the Turman lineage dying out. They even dare to ask when they can expect an heir, catching Littera and Ferris completely off guard. They might be tight, but they haven't even broached the subject of having kids yet, and now it's suddenly thrown in their faces. Shocked by the out-of-the-blue question, Littera starts freaking out about how Ferus is going to handle it, and his face says it all. Realizing she needs to cover for him, Littera tightens her grip on Ferris's hand and coolly responds to the question. She explains that considering the suspicious eyes with which the royal palace looks upon House Turman, they don't want to rush into making a decision. Besides, she and Ferris will talk about it in private. Phew! After the meeting wraps up and the vassals leave, Littera suddenly feels the weight of it all and slumps down. It's like she's finally released the tension from that earlier question. Later, in the comfort of their cozy room, Littera brings up the topic of having an heir. She asks Ferris what he thinks about it. Ferus confesses that he never really thought about getting married or having kids before. He was even considering adopting a child from one of the vassals. He tells Littera not to stress about it. But Littera, thinking about how she never had a child in her past lives, starts considering the possibility of having one in this life. However, Littera's mind starts wandering into some naughty territory, leaving Ferris utterly confused. Eventually, he catches on, and now both of them are flustered and apologizing like crazy. Oops! Littera admits she's too old to be so embarrassed about such things, and confesses that when she's with him, she can't help but worry about how he might feel. Ferus reaches out and gently grabs her clothes, confessing that he never used to get so easily flustered, but now he's become more sensitive to her feelings. He stumbles at times, but he's grateful to Littera because she's shown him a future he never thought possible. And of course, after all that heartfelt conversation, they find themselves in that awkward but oh so comfortable situation of cuddling up together to sleep. Littera is over the moon to get the response letter from Manila, saying she's on her way to the north. Ferus confirms that everything's ready to welcome Manila, and now they just have to sit tight and wait for her to arrive. When Manila and Topaz reach Turman Castle, Topaz is totally awestruck by the view. But Manila, on the other hand, feels a bit intimidated. She warns Topaz not to let their guard down because she's heard rumors about nobles leaving the Turman's castle, either wounded or passed out. But then, when they're greeted by Ferris and Littera, all those thoughts fly right out of Manila's head. She was expecting a savage and wild duke with a mysterious and oddball wife. Instead, it's like she stumbled into a children's fairy tale, a northern teddy bear duke and a bunny duchess, hosting a delightful tea party. Seeing Topaz just standing there, Littera invites him to take a seat. But Manila declines, explaining that she brought Topaz as her escort today because all the knights were out of commission after someone took them down. Ferris, knowing she's referring to him, starts making excuses and apologizes for any trouble. Manila is taken aback by his response. She wonders where the infamous beast has been hiding since they arrived because, honestly, she's never met such a perfect gentleman. It's got her mind racing, trying to figure out why Ferris deliberately cultivates such a nasty public image. Eventually, she musters up the courage to ask him if he acts like a beast to distance himself from the throne. And with that charming smile of his, Ferus confesses that he never expected a simple apology to lead Manila to such conclusions. It just goes to show how wise she is, he says. Manila can't help but wonder why the Turman couple trusts her enough to reveal their true selves, even though she's engaged to Crown Prince Everett. Ferris and Littera obviously can't spill the beans about Littera's past life, so Littera comes up with a cover story. She says that after their last meeting, she just had a gut feeling that it would be okay to share with Manila. But that doesn't satisfy Manila, and her mind keeps spinning, trying to piece it all together. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off in her head. It hits her that maybe Littera figured out that Manila might betray Everett based on their earlier encounter. That explains why the Turman couple welcomed them so warmly. It's like that saying, the enemy of your enemy is a friend. Manila braces herself, realizing there's no reason to hesitate. Having Littera, who can see right through her plans and intentions, as an ally could be a game changer, a real gem. Without wasting any more time, Manila jumps right into a plan to put an end to the royal palace's interference with House Termin. Littera and Ferris are both in disbelief at how quickly she's moving. Littera had thought it would take months to get this far in their relationship with Manila. Manila then tells Topaz to remove his mask, and she drops the bomb that she intends to make Topaz the next emperor. That means if Littera and Ferris help them out, House Termin will have a friend on the throne. Topaz nervously steps closer to Ferris and opens up about wanting to have a close relationship with him because he's never had a family of his own. He sees Ferris as the only blood relative he's got and even asks if it's okay to start calling him cousin. You can just picture the expression on Ferris's face at that moment. Thinking about it, even though they're technically cousins, Feroz believes they're in completely different states. One being all flowery and the other a beastly man. The only thing they have in common is their red eyes, a sign of their shared imperial blood. After some awkward sweating and realizing they're both just as bad as each other, Feroz finally tells Topaz to do whatever he wants, and that actually makes Topaz happy. Manila had assumed Ferris would be mad after her explanation earlier, but watching his response, it seemed she got it wrong again. Not wanting to miss the chance to help Ferris and Topaz bond, Manila asks Littera to give her a tour around the castle. Littera quickly catches on to Manila's intentions and stops Ferris from joining them, saying they need some girl time. She suggests Ferris and Topaz have a good talk too. So there they are, standing clueless and awkward as they see their partners disappear in a flash. While taking a leisurely stroll around the castle, Littera expresses her gratitude to Manila for taking the initiative to let Feroz and Topaz have their own time together. She shares her concerns about Ferris, who has never had someone close to him besides her and the people of the castle. But now, seeing that he has a chance to form a bond with someone of the same status as him without worrying about hidden intentions, Littera feels truly grateful that Topaz asked Ferris to call him cousin. Realizing how much Littera genuinely cares about Ferris, Manila can't help but ask how Littera managed to develop such a strong relationship with Ferris, especially since they had never met before their marriage. It's like they've known each other for at least 5 years, according to the current situation. Littera is taken aback by Manila's observation, which hits the nail on the head. Trying to respond honestly, Littera tells Manila that it's because she's come from the future. But Manila doesn't buy it and understands if Littera wants to keep that as a secret. So instead, they decide to become even closer friends. Littera is delighted to hear that and expresses her own desire to become closer friends with Manila too. Since they're already in the same boat together, Manila expresses her gratitude for being honored with Littera's friendship as well. Meanwhile, back with our red-eyed dudes, things were still awkward as ever. Just when it seemed like they were going nowhere, Littera and Manila came into the room. Seeing that the guys were still not getting any closer, Littera had to take matters into her own hands. She decided to break out the wine, thinking alcohol might loosen them up and help them connect. But Littera didn't quite think it through. She was so thrilled to rekindle her friendship with Manila that she went a bit overboard on the drinks. Plus, Manila was more used to tea parties than wild nights out, so she just downed whatever Littera gave her without considering her tolerance. And to top it off, Ferris and Topaz had way too much faith in their beloved partners to step in and intervene. So Littera and Manila ended up drinking without restraint, setting the stage for disaster. And now both Ferris and Topaz have to deal with the aftermath. Before they knew it, they became comrades in adversity, facing the consequences of their little impromptu party. Well, looks like the alcohol did the trick. Who would have guessed? Manila sobered up from being drunk, and she's now feeling regretful about everything that happened. Her head is still throbbing, so she thinks going outside for some fresh air might help her feel better. Topaz, who is looking out for Manila, is sitting in front of her room and decides to accompany her for a breath of fresh air. While they are outside, Manila suggests that Topaz could stay at Termini's house since he now has a relative there, and that way, he can be free from her selfish desires. However, Topaz feels at ease with Manila and expresses that he owes his life to her, giving her the right to do as she pleases with his heart. He sincerely pleads with Manila not to mention leaving him. Meanwhile, our adorable couple is still dealing with drunk Littera, and Farouz is trying to get her to sleep. Even in her tipsy state, Littera keeps teasing Faris, saying she doesn't want to sleep because then she won't be able to see his cute face. Those words hit Faris right in the heart like a love arrow. Blushing like crazy, Faris tries to avoid Littera's gaze, but she insists on seeing her husband's adorable face. Curious, Farouz asks her how he can be adorable, but Littera just keeps saying that if she says he is, then he must be. She even tries to get Faris to admit it himself, but he's not falling for that trick. He notices that Littera is actually sobering up, even though she can't believe her poor acting didn't fool him. While chilling in bed, Faris attempts to lull Littera to sleep by sharing a story from his childhood dream. Back in the day, he used to bug his parents for a little brother, and now that he has Littera, it feels like miracles keep happening in his life. With a soft touch on Faris's face, Littera sweetly assures him that all the good stuff comes his way because he's a genuinely good person. Manila and Topaz are all set to make their exit from Turman's castle. Manila and Littera decide to keep their close relationship under wraps and continue acting as they did before. Faris asks Topaz if he has found a sword teacher yet, but Topaz hasn't found one yet. So Faris suggests that he should check out the swordsmanship teacher he knows. Turns out, it's none other than Littera's mother, Baroness Myrto, whom Faris recommends as Topaz's teacher. After making it safely back home, Manila sent a letter to Littera, updating her on the whole situation. She starts with how her father couldn't sleep, worried sick about her not returning home. And guess what? Even the other nobles were all amazed that she managed to survive a night with those beasts. The king himself even sent her a letter. But that's not all. Farouz also got a letter from Topaz, who's super grateful for his new sword teacher. However, things took a major turn in Myrto's house. To get Marquis Teka to hire Baroness Myrto as a sword teacher, they had to come up with a clever excuse. They pretended that since communication with Turman seemed impossible, they had to use Littera's parents to figure out what they could gain from the north. It was all about partnering with someone they'd rather not, no matter how much they didn't like the idea. As a result, there's been talk of some significant changes in businesses using magic stones, and everyone suddenly got interested in Littera's parents. This, of course, overwhelmed Littera's father big time. Faris also received a letter from Littera's father, thanking him for the fortune he brought to their family. But he didn't miss the chance to scold Faris about not getting Littera all bloody again in the future. Littera feels a bit guilty about it and wants to write a letter to her father to explain the situation, but Farouz stops her. He tells her that when her father scolds him like that, it actually makes him feel like he's part of the family, and he doesn't mind it at all. Drawing closer to Faris, Littera affirms that he truly is a part of their family. Feeling the romantic tension building up, Littera closes her eyes, ready for a kiss. But her hopes are dashed when Faris quickly turns away, saying he needs to respond to the letters. Littera is left confused, and she asks Faris if he did that on purpose, trying to kiss her but then changing his mind. She's worried because lately they haven't been kissing as much, and she wonders if they're growing bored of each other already. So, she asks Faris to explain what's going on. Blushing like crazy, Farouz covers his beet-red face and nervously explains that he's worried he won't be able to hold back anymore. Littera's face also turns beet-red upon hearing Faris' explanation. She thinks it might be the right time for their relationship to move to the next level, so she mentally prepares herself and gently touches Faris' face, telling him he doesn't need to hold back. But Faris, sweating and trembling, admits that he's not okay with that. Littera is shocked and demands an explanation. Embarrassed, Farouz reveals that he's just not mentally prepared yet, and he needs a little more time so that their first time together won't be ruined. Hearing this, Littera feels relieved because she was worried that Farouz might not want to be close to her anymore. They decide to take things slowly, and Littera suggests they take a bath together instead. Well, This is how Ferus reacts when he hears Littera's suggestion of bathing together, freezing like a stone. And there they are, having their couple bathrobes, ready to get into the water. As they get closer to each other, Ferus tells Littera that there's something he'd like to try. Littera feels a tinge of disappointment when she realizes that what Ferus wants to do is wash her hair. It's something he's always thought about whenever he touches her hair, and now he finally has the chance. However, when it comes to choosing the right hair oil to complement the aroma of the bath oil, Ferus starts to worry that he might mess it up. Littera reassures Ferus, telling him not to worry about how it might turn out because nobody's perfect on the first try. She encourages him that even if he messes up, he can always try again. And what he might consider a failure, someone else might actually love. But Ferus' mind starts racing, and he can't help but ask for confirmation if she's not talking about hair oil. Littera starts panicking and assures him that she's only talking about hair oil. Absolutely 100% only hair oil. She didn't need anything else. As Ferus is massaging Littera's hair with oil, his mind starts drifting back to what she said about not needing him to hold back. Even though he's still a bit unsure about taking things to the next level, he figures if Littera wants him that way, he'll take it slow and get closer step by step. Out of the blue, he asks Littera if he can kiss her. Littera turns her gaze to Ferus and tells him there's no need to ask for that. But Ferus clarifies that he's not planning to kiss her on the lips. Littera can't help but notice how Ferus always asks for permission for even the smallest affectionate gestures, yet his eyes are full of desire. Seeing that just makes her want him even more. She gently touches Ferus' lips and once again reassures him that he doesn't need to hold back. Leaning in closer, Ferus explains that by asking, he can gauge how much she wants him. He slowly moves his lips to her neck, gently kissing her while wrapping her in his arms. Littera feels defeated, but also completely surrendering to him. However, after they finish bathing, Littera feels a bit annoyed that the neck kisses were as far as it went, but Ferus seems perfectly satisfied. He expresses his joy about their wonderful evening together and asks if they can do it more often from now on. On the training ground, while the knights are busy with their drills, one of them complains to the commander about the overwhelming perfume scent that lingers in the air. The commander himself notices it and agrees that it's becoming a distraction. They decide that they need to figure out who's responsible for the perfume and give them a fitting punishment. But from behind them, Ferus, with his deadly glare and flowery aroma, confidently admits that it's him. He explains that the scent sticks to him after bathing with his wife and asks if the commander has any complaints. Ferus cheekily adds that if a little perfume is enough to distract them from training, then their discipline must be slipping, and he'll have to train them even harder. While the other knights groan from exhaustion due to the intense training Ferus put them through, Cain approaches Ferus and asks when the Mage Tower will come to collect the giant magic stone they harvested from the monster earlier. It's taking up too much space in the armory. Ferus informs Cain that he already contacted the Mage Tower some time ago, but nobody has come to pick it up yet. He discusses this with Littera while they are bathing together, both wondering why the mages haven't collected the magic stone yet, considering how obsessed they usually are with them. Littera ponders the possibility of the ruptures appear there. Meanwhile, over at the Mage Tower, they're in an all-out battle against the never-ending stream of monsters. It's like they can't catch a break, with the monsters just swarming in relentlessly. But guess who's there to join the fight? Littera and Ferus, all geared up and ready to take on the monsters once again. The Lord Mage looks like he's about to give up, totally overwhelmed by the never-ending monsters. But out of the blue, his subordinate dashes in, telling him that the Duke and Duchess Termin have arrived and urges him to come outside and see for himself. Meanwhile, Ferus and Littera are kicking monster butt together like bosses, shutting down all the ruptures and fighting like a well-oiled team. When the Lord Mage witnesses how effortlessly Ferus and Littera handle everything, he's left in complete disbelief. He's the Lord Mage, but he couldn't do what they just did. After thanking Ferus and Littera, the Lord Mage, Indigo Barum, admits that he's got a bunch of questions about why they came to help and how they pulled it off, but he figures they can save that conversation for later. It's a surprising change from him since he usually follows his curiosity wherever it takes him and won't let go until he gets answers. In Littera's past life, he treated her like a mere research subject, so she wonders if it's because he's just too worn out and exhausted to care right now. Feeling a bit sorry for the guy, Littera asks if there's anything else he needs help with. Indigo reluctantly admits that he hates relying on outsiders, but there's one thing that only Littera and Ferris might be capable of handling, so he's willing to accept their assistance. He shows them a door with a bright light emanating from inside and explains that it leads to the Maze of Memories. Indigo goes on to explain that the Maze of Memories was initially designed for mages who faced a dead end in their research. They could duplicate their memories and walk through them to spot any crucial details they might have missed. But lately, some mages have gone in and never returned. He wonders if the solution to those ruptures lies within the maze. Getting ready to go in and rescue the missing mages, Littera conjures a magical string with her power and instructs Ferris to hold onto it tightly so they don't lose each other inside the maze. They're all set to face whatever challenges lie ahead. Once inside the Maze of Memories, Littera finds herself surrounded by her past. It's overwhelming, and she's not fully prepared to relive those traumatic moments she had tried so hard to erase. So, she closes her eyes, determined not to get caught up in those memories, or she might never find a way back out. She has something much more important to focus on now at the other end of the magical string in her hands. Ferris is waiting for her. Meanwhile, on the other side of the string, Ferris finds himself trapped in darkness, puzzled as to why there are no memories of him present there. But then, he spots a rupture that has been opened. Preparing to defend himself against any monsters that might emerge, Ferris readies his swords. However, to his shock, someone or something comes out of the rupture. It's a man who looks exactly like Carta, but with wings, pointy ears, and fangs. The fake Carta seems just as surprised to see Ferris and asks him what he's doing there. The phony Carta is totally blown away when he sees Feruz looking exactly like he did in the past. He starts wondering if the rupture was some kind of time travel portal. But just as he's lost in thought, Ferris hits him hard out of nowhere, catching him off guard. Feruz is a bit distracted because this imposter Carta has the same face and even talks like the real Carta he knows. They're stuck in this memory maze, and Ferris thinks this fake Carta must be some monster trying to copy the real one. But the faker has to defend himself from Ferris's attack, and while preparing to fight back, he insists that he's not a monster but actually a demon in his true form. Ferris still ain't buying the fake Carta's story and keeps pushing for him to go back to his real form. But the imposter gets all annoyed, yammering on about how stubborn Ferris is, and that's why he's still single. What a load of crap! The real Carta Ferris knows wouldn't say that because he knows Ferris is happily married to the most amazing woman ever. The imposter is taken aback and can't believe it, but then he tries to insult Ferris further, calling his wife a freak for marrying him. This really ticks Ferris off, and he firmly defends Littera, telling him he dares insult Littera. The faker starts panicking, asking if he means Littera Marto. But Ferris ain't stopping his attack. He makes the fake Carta listen real good with his pointy ears, cause Littera calls him adorable. And then, out of nowhere, Littera shows up, all happy that Ferris said that. Talk about bad timing though, Feruz feels both shocked and embarrassed. Meanwhile, the fake Carta is just standing there, completely stunned and unable to believe what's happening. And there's Littera, right in front of him. Feruz points at the fake Carta and tells Littera that he said some hurtful stuff, calling Feruz a monster. That really ticks Littera off, and she gets ready to launch an attack at the faker. She's furious that this imposter not only stole her friend's face but also insulted her husband. Littera uses her power chain to trap the fake Carta and goes on a mad rant, declaring that her husband is the cutest guy on the planet. Then she sends the fake Carta flying far away. They can't bring themselves to kill him since he looks like their friend. But Littera's got a feeling that there's something off about him, like some cursed energy or something. She wonders what it could be. Thankfully, the fake Carta ain't pushing daisies like he imagined. He's totally blown away that he ran into Littera again. But boy, did she kick him into the next dimension? Still, he's stoked to see her all alive and well, and he's got this strong urge to give her a big bear hug. He contemplates spilling the beans to the others about what happened, but then he reconsiders. They might just clown on him, not buying a word of his story. So, he decides to zip it for now until he's got some concrete proof to back him up. After sealing up all those crazy ruptures in the memory maze, Littera and Farouz still gotta stick to their mission, saving the mages and wrecking this maze for good. Littera covers her eyes with a blindfold because they're about to stroll through Ferris's memories, and she wants to give him some privacy. Real considerate move. But the further they go, Ferris starts getting mentally fried. He never thought his self-doubt and self-hate would come back to haunt him like this. Littera's all worried about him, but Ferris manages to pull himself together and assures her he's all right. He takes off Littera's blindfold, saying from here on out, it's gonna be their shared memories. But when they hit that memory of when they first met, Littera can't help but burst out laughing. Ferris was all stiff and serious, going on about how she might end up regretting marrying him. Talk about facepalm moment. Littera gets herself together and asks if she should put the blindfold back on. But Farouz, still feeling bashful, says it's cool as long as she had a good laugh. Ferris chips in, adding that sure, there might be some memories they'd rather forget. But from a certain point onward, it's all happiness. Flashing a big grin, he happily declares that every single one of those happy memories stars none other than Littera. Littera's moved by his words. She never thought they'd find anything but darkness in this maze. But Farouz's words make everything shine so bright. After finally cracking open the maze's core, Littera and Ferris bring back those missing mages. Indigo's there, trembling in awe, relieved that they made it through with the mages in tow. Littera sees his worried expression and figures he must really care about his mages. But as Indigo takes one of the fainted mages away, all he can think about is continuing his research, and he's just relieved that Littera brought the mages back. Oh, those poor mages! Littera goes ahead and pumps her power into that massive magic stone they got earlier, hoping that Indigo can figure out how to use it to close the ruptures without her. She tells him straight up that she can't be expected to come running every single time one of those things pops up. Plus, she's pretty sure it must have been embarrassing for him not being able to handle it himself. Littera then looks over at Indigo with a smile, telling him she's giving him a chance to prove himself here. Indigo seems really touched by Littera's words. His heart's pounding, and he starts blushing, asking if there's any room left in her heart for a second person. But Ferris jumps in calmly, saying that Carda's already got that spot, so Indigo can take the third place. Man, Littera can't believe what she's hearing from those two. Back in their castle, Ferris is all hyped up to talk about their plan to celebrate Noeth's Day. It's this awesome time for partying and showing love to that god who shaped the world in a good way. Farouz starts going over how they can keep the budget simple, and guess who pops into their minds? Yep, it's Carda, and he's super proud to announce that all the holiday stuff is now half price. He hands Littera the catalog and tells her he needs to talk to Ferris in private. As they're strolling down the hallway, Carda casually asks Ferris if he knows that Littera's birthday is smack dab on the third day of Noeth's Day. Carda looks right at Ferris and straight up asks what kind of present he's planning to give her. He thinks it's a smart move to share their ideas beforehand, so they don't end up getting her the same thing. Farouz starts sweating bullets, panicking like crazy. He's never celebrated a birthday before, so he totally spaced out on needing to get a gift. Littera notices that Ferris has been acting a bit weird lately. He's always lost in thought, sneaking off to places in secret and having hush-hush talks with Carda. Littera's pretty sure he's planning something for her birthday. But instead of spoiling the surprise, she decides to play it cool and act like she has no clue. Even when it's bedtime, Ferris is still racking his brain about what to get Littera. But no matter how hard he thinks, he can't come up with anything good. So, he decides to seek some outside opinions. The next day, Farouz tries asking Jurgen, Nikki, and even the Knights for advice, but they're all clueless because they've never had to deal with this gift stuff either. Then out of nowhere, Jurgen comes up with the idea of giving a present like Farouz's dad gave his mom. But Farouz is worried that Littera might not like it. He even thinks about that letter from Littera's past life, hoping to find some clue there, but no dice, it doesn't help at all. Feeling frustrated, Farouz decides to head out of town, all the way to Tekka's place. He asks Topaz for advice because he's desperate for some help. Farouz explains that he tried Littera's parents' house, but they weren't much help either. They just kicked him out, telling him to figure it out on his own. Just when Farouz is feeling super bummed, Marquis Tekka chimes in from his work and can't believe Farouz spent so much money on teleportation for such a trivial problem. But Farouz goes ahead and asks for his advice anyway, thinking maybe this elder dude's got some wisdom to share. Sadly, Marquis Tekka's suggestion is just gems and flowers, which Farouz thinks is super boring and unimaginative. He's like, dude, your life must be so empty. But then Manila comes out of nowhere and greets Farouz. She drops some real wisdom on him, saying he should look for an experience that only he and Littera shared. Like something from when they first met or something that represents their time together. Manila says it might seem trivial to others, but it'll be full of emotion for Littera when she sees it. And that kind of gift, one that means something to both the giver and receiver, is the best kind of gift. Bingo! Farouz finally gets the idea and is ready to head back home. He thanks Manila and promises to pay her back for her help. And out the window he goes. It's the big day, the third day of Noath's day. Farouz is totally amped up and raring to go. He's got this killer attitude, saying there's no way he's gonna mess this up. Game on! Littera's totally caught off guard by all the birthday gifts she gets. Her parents give her a new dress. Carta hooks her up with some top-notch stuff, and even the Lord of the Mages busts his butt making the latest artifacts just for her. House of Tekka chips in with a gift, and she even gets goodies from the folks in Termin, including the servants and knights. With a big smile, Littera pulls Farouz in close and tells him that out of all those amazing gifts, he's her absolute favorite birthday present. Ah, how sweet! Then Farouz extends his hand and invites Littera somewhere to make the day even more unforgettable. Gotta keep that special day rolling. From the balcony, Littera takes in the stunning sight of the festival lanterns. It's so beautiful. Meanwhile, Farouz is fidgeting, getting all nervous as he brings up the gift he prepared for her. He hands her a pocket watch, but it's not just any ordinary watch. When she opens it, she's blown away. Inside, there's 1 clock for Farouz and 3 for her, each one representing a life. Holding her hand, Farouz explains that the gift symbolizes the time they have together. Compared to all the lives Littera has lived, the time they've spent together may seem short. Even if they grow old together, they'll never catch up to the length of her entire life. But Farouz tells her that as long as he can make their time together as happy as possible and give meaning to all the effort she put into finding him, that's all he needs. He wants to stay by her side, cherishing every second they have together. Littera can't help but feel that Farouz has this incredible warmth in him. Even though she told him to be a bit selfish, he stubbornly refuses to do anything without her permission. Their relationship is like a rose in a glass box. It's crystal clear what's inside, but the thorns make them hesitant to touch it. So they keep it locked up, only looking at it from a distance. And Farouz is happy with that because he wants Littera to be happy and comfortable. He's willing to spend whatever time they have together, standing by her side and keeping that glass box safe and secure. This time, Littera refuses to let things go on like that. She tells Farouz that she's got a gift for him too. Originally, she planned to wait until she had sorted out her own feelings. But she knows that healing a broken heart doesn't happen overnight, and she's still scared of those thorns. However, being with Farouz, even for this short time, has brought her a happiness she never thought she'd experience again. So she's starting to think that maybe it's okay to face a little more pain, even if it's scary. With a warm gaze, she puts a ring on Farouz's finger and tells him that she loves him. Farouz is taken aback and worried about Littera, but she stops him from asking more questions. Instead, she hands him the ring box and extends her finger, letting him know that she wants to hear something from him too. He's trembling, but he manages to put the ring on Littera's finger. Holding her tightly, he stammers and confesses how much he loves her. Ferris can't hold back his tears any longer, and he cries, saying that he's been waiting so long to say those words. Littera apologizes for making him wait, and tells him that from now on, he can say those words as often as he wants. They share a romantic moment, letting their feelings guide them as their lips meet. Fingers crossed. Let's hope nothing ruins their romantic moment. After their lips part, Littera asks if Ferris still needs time to feel comfortable around her. He kisses her again and admits that he's not entirely sure. But he lays Littera down on the bed and says that right now, he's starting to think it doesn't really matter. As the morning sun rises, the birds start chirping, and the sunlight sneaks through the windows, waking Littera up. She's all disheveled, wondering what time it is, but when she moves, she feels aches all over her back. Blushing like crazy, she remembers the wild night she and Ferris spent together. She looks over at Ferris, still peacefully snoozing away, a sight she's never seen before since he's always the one up first. This time, she gets to be the one to wake him up, but all she does is pinch his nose. She teases him, saying how he's sleeping like a baby after making her body ache all over. Ferris tries to make an excuse, saying that Littera was the one who kept urging him on. But before he can finish his words, Littera quickly covers his mouth, her face all red, telling him to stop talking like that. Ferris sits up, blushing himself, and nervously promises to be gentler from now on. He hugs Littera from behind, kissing her shoulder, and begs her not to hate him. He keeps showering her with kisses, and Littera can't help but blush even more. Suddenly, Ferris pins her down on the bed and asks for permission to be a little greedier. This surprises Littera. She can't believe how insatiable Ferris has become. He gently nibbles her finger and tells her he won't force her. Moving his lips to her arm, he asks her to say the word and he'll stop. His face gets closer to hers, waiting for her command. But Littera hesitates to say the word. In the end, she kisses Ferris and admits that she couldn't say no to him. They both express their longing for that deep connection between them, something they've held back for so long. Now, they can finally say I love you to each other as many times as they want. It's a moment of pure love and passion they've been waiting for. While having breakfast together, Ferris is curious how Littera managed to get him a ring that fits his finger so perfectly. Littera proudly spills the beans she measured it herself. She thought she might have been too obvious back then. But, hey, Ferus never caught on. Ferus never expected to receive a ring as a gift, and now he's feeling a bit shy about the one he got for Littera. But with the gift from Ferris on her hand, Littera tells him she absolutely loves it. She appreciates all the effort he put into it. Every time she looks at it, it'll remind her of those sweet words Ferris said while giving it to her. It'll also bring back memories of all those years she worked hard to meet him, and how every second was worth it. She promises to treasure the pocket watch forever. Now that they have these special tokens of love, they can focus on making every moment they share even happier than the last. It's all about building beautiful memories together from here on out. Man, their journey has been a roller coaster ride. But seeing them tackle every challenge together makes me crave a deep connection like that too. I'm seriously jealous. Anyway, don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment below. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed every second of it.